This episode of the BJJ Foxcast is brought to you by BioPro. BioPro is an all-natural alternative to prescription human growth hormone, which aids in recovery, anti-aging, metabolism, libido, immunity, skin health, cognition, sleep, and stress. Just one vial per day provides a substantial boost to all of these growth factors. Okay, so that's what they want me to say. Here's what I know as an aging grappler. I've been using BioPro Plus and the nighttime variant, BioPro Plus Cortisleep, for several months, and it feels like I've grown a third lung. My gas tank is noticeably bigger, my recovery is faster, and I'm back on the mats much quicker, not just between training sessions, but between rounds. Now you can get $30 off your first order of BioPro when you use the code Foxcast at www.bioproteintech.com. That's code Foxcast for $30 off your first order at www.bioproteintech.com. Thank you, BioPro. Hey, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the BJJ Foxcast. I am your host, Alex Martinez, and today I have none other than Gustavo Dantas on the show. Gustavo is a podcaster. He's a public speaker. He's a high-performance mental coach, founder of the GD Jiu-Jitsu Association, founder of the Arizona Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu League, co-founder of Jiu-Jitsu Tribe, a nonprofit that helps at-risk youth and adults in impoverished communities, owner of GD Jiu-Jitsu Academy in Tempe, Arizona, an MMA veteran, ADCC veteran, multiple-time national champion, multiple-time world champion, multiple-time Masters world champion, and that's just the stuff I could fit into one card. Gustavo, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me here.
Yes, if you could just pull the microphone just a little bit closer. These are very directional, but I appreciate you making the time to come in.
Absolutely.
And so let's get right into, I want to dig right into Jiu-Jitsu Tribe. Tell me about Jiu-Jitsu Tribe, how that came about, and what it is.
I felt 2010, that's when I started talking about this, and officially when we started. And I always have the feeling that I wanted to do back when I was still in Brazil. And by the way, this year just completed 25 years in the United States, 24 in Brazil.
Congratulations. 25 and 24. Wow.
Yeah,
okay.
So finally flipped. And yeah, man. And I always felt like during my journey, I had a lot of people that believed in what I was doing, even though they barely knew me. You know, and sometimes you have sponsors or people who are supporting the journey, and then kind of like, yeah, I see that he's being, put in the effort, and sure, let's help him. And I always had a feeling that I wanted to do something related to help other people's journey. And then, of course, that evolved into the Jiu-Jitsu Tribe. But it was finding a way to give back. And we started with, at first, just supporting social projects. Basically, for people who are listening for the first time, our mission is to inspire, impact, and improve lives, utilizing jiu-jitsu as a personal and social development tool. So, you already support social projects that offer already jiu-jitsu classes worldwide, that United States, Brazil. And then we do the best to support them, because one of the biggest issues with nonprofits is that the lack of support, and next thing the organization is done. Or people who are putting their time and donating their time teaching, but sometimes they're tight. They need to get 2 jobs, and like, dude, I'd love to keep doing, but I can't. So the idea was starting with that. So at first we used to help with just sustainability stuff or mats, and then sometimes support team going to compete, so pay for registration. And then over the years, just helping a bunch of people, just start noticing some patterns. And one of the patterns was a lot of the instructors, big heart, coming from humble places. But the management of like what they do, their funds, as far as like, man, we're gonna help people. We do food drive, we do this, we do that. We raise money for competition. But like, to maintain the place, you need something. So I felt like they're always like backed up and in trouble with that. So I said, you know what? It doesn't do any good, like, if you just support them to compete. But there's one point to be like, well, we're not going to compete anymore because there's no more program. The instructor had to stop. So with that in mind, start to develop a bunch of different things. So currently, we're speaking 2024, we have Jiu-Jitsu Tribe is divided in 3 areas. Being the first one, mental health. And it's, we did a pilot in my school a few years ago. We did a partnership with this place called Resilient Health in Phoenix. So basically the idea is it's a behavior center that works with kids, and depression, anxiety, and then the goal is to utilize it just as part of the program that you're doing that they're already doing.
Yeah.
So that's the idea that we try to do. So we did it at my school, and it went really well. Because the problem is sometimes you contact some of those clinics and people don't know about jiu-jitsu, be like a liability. Are they going to get aggressive? Is it fighting?
Yeah.
So we just got very lucky that Lori, that's Heath's sister, which is one of the co-founders, was able to vouch for jiu-jitsu. Like, hey, this is really good for kids. You guys should give it a try. So since we did at the school, we did for like 3 months and then renew for 3 months. And they started noticing the improvement, and basically the director just seemed like, okay, we're down with this. Let's keep doing. The only problem was logistic, because it was far as to be able to bring multiple kids, and it's became more difficult.
And do you rely? I'm sorry to interrupt you, but do you rely a lot on volunteers to help out with the transportation and all of that, or is that all paid for?
Well, in this case, that was a Resilient Health that was responsible.
Gotcha.
For that, but for them it was just difficult. Yeah. So we just decided, that was last year, we decided to start doing a partnership with the ZBJJL, is contacting schools. That means if there is a child that lives by the closest school possible to this child, we get in contact with the school and say like, hey, would you be willing to sponsor one student? You can even donate or just loan a gi. So they go for 3 months, and then they're always working with their tutor also out of jiu-jitsu. And then to see like, are you enjoying? Because maybe they're not enjoying, they want to do it, that's it. And they don't stop. And then try to offer it to someone else. So we've been doing for like 6 months, and then ask the academy, do you want to keep supporting, or are they putting the work or not? So we've been able to little by little spread. I'd love to do that throughout the US, but it's like having the right connection of a behavior center that is willing to implement jiu-jitsu, believe and trust, and then contact. So basically for us in this area, we're just a connector.
Oh,
we're not,
okay.
We're not really, it's just like, hey, where is this? Where can I find a school? Do you guys want to help? And then we put them together.
Yeah.
So it's been really cool. The improvements that you've seen of the kids. So that's something that we definitely want to explore more. So currently only in Arizona. And the second part is sustainability, which is something that, as I mentioned, like constructions, new mats. Last year, we donated 150 brand new gis, in partnership with Browse, custom made. So the idea was we did a batch of gis with Browse Jiu-Jitsu Tribe. So that means every gi that you purchase, it's money generated to produce a brand new custom made gi for them.
Wow. Okay.
So with that, we were able to last year to do 150 gi. So it's really cool because you have some videos on YouTube and see the kids doing. It's like you're trying a new suit.
Yeah, yeah.
They're looking into it.
Yeah.
So they are super excited. And then with that goes the Adopt a Social Project program, which is to be able to support coaches. Usually we don't do much with like tournament stuff as far as sponsoring a team to go.
Yeah.
We have done in the past, but it's something that right now we focus more in sustainability type of deal. And so there's a lot of stuff on that side. And then the third one is the Jiu-Jitsu Tribe Institute, which is a personal development center in Brazil, in the south of Brazil, in Rio Grande do Sul.
Oh wow! Is that brick and mortar? Is that a building that you're working out of?
Yeah, we just so currently we have 2 spots. We started just with the jiu-jitsu with someone that I met through, all the social work. He's been doing this for 10 years, and man, you see like a lot of social works, but you have the different ones. You know what I mean? They're like community leaders. Yeah. You know what I mean? Very impressive, and they barely have for themselves. Wow. So we started last year. We have our building that Jiu-Jitsu Tribe pay for the rent for the place, so to have classes. And now we start getting a house that the goal is to take the Jiu-Jitsu classes. So right now we have 2 places, and the other one, as a matter of fact, next week starts officially. So that's social emotional learning classes, financial education, art. Jiu-Jitsu is one of the activities. So it's a rural area, but in in Brazil, and there's a lot, even in US, there's a lot of forgotten areas that people be like, I have no idea. Yeah. That dude, you know, so everywhere in the world there are communities like that. Unfortunately, in the US, there's not too many jiu-jitsu or people utilizing jiu-jitsu for program. Guardian.org, guardiangym.org, they do an incredible job. They do some partnerships too. Have Higher Ground in Tucson. They are incredible. Jensen does an incredible job. And we just helped some, last year, just helped a program in Kansas City. I went there for a fundraiser. And then someone told him, like, hey, my friend teaches in a rec center. It's for free. I was like, tell me more. He gave him the number, called the dude. Next day, we did one community jiu-jitsu, I believe. And we did like 20 custom-made gis for them, you know, the kids that don't have gi.
Yeah.
So it's just because a lot of people who are listening, I don't know how many people being exposed to other realities as far as jiu-jitsu, you know, being able to visit places that you're like, wow. Some of the videos that you put in say like, man, people training literally on the street. Yeah. You know, where the bus would go in, they put the mats there. That's where they train, you know. So the impact that jiu-jitsu having in life. So if anyone wants to watch the YouTube Jiu-Jitsu Tribe, we have a few documentaries of visiting some of the places and the impact of jiu-jitsu in the community. From like, there's one, our first episode was all related to drug dealing and the cartel and the impact in the community and how jiu-jitsu able to save and get a lot of those kids out of that. So it's a very powerful one. And we have one with special needs. We have one with mental health, to the benefits, talking with, you know, parents and stuff. So anyway, so these are the three interconnected areas that we have, and the goal is to little by little be, you know, trying to expand as much as we can. And anyone that knows about someone that teaches for free in a community in US, let us know, because there are not too many. In Brazil, there are thousands. Yeah, literally.
That's fantastic that you're doing that. Yeah.
And so anytime we find someone in the US doing like, because I don't want at the same time people think like, oh, he's Brazilian, he's just want to do the things in Brazil. Like, no, we want to do, there's some people doing an incredible work in Peru. Yeah. Like, I don't care what they're doing, but like people doing, can we help? And for sure, you know, having someone in the US doing, we will support.
That's awesome. Yeah. And, you know, a lot of people look at, you know, you were talking about kids, you know, dealing drugs and the impact that jiu-jitsu can have on those kids. It just them having an alternative to it, because people think of drug dealers like everybody's making a lot of money. That's just not the truth. Mm-hmm. You know, the people at the top are making the money, and they're using these kids on the street, and they're under immense amount of pressure daily, right? And like you said, the mental health aspect, the physical aspect, all of that can come into play and really, really make an effect on one kid or two. I mean, if you can do that, it's all worth it.
Yeah, one of the most, I mean, there's so many, can go on and on situations now that I've been in Brazil and places, but one of the episodes that really made an impact on me, one of the instructors of he's not the main guy, but one of the main instructors of the program, so he was heavily involved with crime. His dad was crime. He is in a family. You were born, is that what you see? It was like, well, that's a normal thing. Yeah. You know? Yeah. And he got into jiu-jitsu maybe like, you know, early, like 11, 12 years old, but it was like doing both. Yeah. You know, bouncing back. So, but he was always the instructor, always like, come back. And then for many years, he did both until one point that it was just full-time that. And at one point, you know, there's just a big shift in his life. And then so when he did an interview, he mentioned, I don't even know if that was mentioned in the interview, because I was just talking after, but it was kind of like, for him, it was so powerful because he tell the kids like, they are using you. Like, I mean, you know why? Because I've been used, and I've used kids. They are using you. Wow. You know, so that was, dude, it gave me a chill because it was so powerful. He like realized that I was one of the kids. I became one of the dealers, like, trying to just kind of drag those kids here, you know, and now just having the clarity to see like, that's not okay, dude. Yeah. You know, so unbelievable. So he just got his black belt last week. So it's really cool, you know, the time that we've been putting in. Yeah. It was super special. Yeah, that's time well spent. And I looked on the website. I spent some time on the website, and you have a lot of really good stories on there. And there's also, you know, it's very easy to navigate your way through the website and find out how to
how to give. And, when if schools wanting to get involved, what's the first step that they need to take to be involved?
Well, we have a few. It'll be contacting us would be the best way, because we can help in different ways. Like someone wants to do a fundraiser to say like, hey, you want to do a fundraiser to be able to raise, and they can pick their organization. It doesn't have to be the one, because sometimes it has someone that already has been helping and it's related to jiu-jitsu. Cool.
Yeah.
Then we do it. So it can be in different ways. It can be as a goal to produce 25 custom-made gis, or the goal to produce 50 gis for the academy. So there's a lot of ways it can be done.
I love it.
And another one, we have the Adopt a Social Project program. We have Greg from Control Physical Therapy. He's been here, right?
Yeah, Greg McClarty.
That's my guy.
Yeah.
So he actually is part of this, and he sponsored one of the programs that one of the most complete kind of settings that we did before, because we probably raised about $10,000. So we're able to, we have some videos online too, able to do a little construction in the back, prepare, because they didn't have any roof to put the roof, but nice mats.
Yeah.
So they're training for like 5 or 6 months without the gi, just because just whatever they have. And this it's an incredible institute, by the way. And then we try to emulate them the best way possible. They do incredible work. And so we're able to get 40 or 50 custom-made gi. So we'll have that on YouTube also, kind of when they receive the gis, and it's really cool.
Yeah.
And then the coach gets paid too. And that, it's when the sponsor, in this case is Greg and Control Physical Therapy, that actually help with that. So the guy can keep serving.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because if not, some people can. Some people be like, dude, I can't. I've seen multiple nonprofits that along over the years that stopped because like I can't. I need to get another gig, and and can do it. So there's different ways that people can help, from donating $5 per month, just kind of recurring payment, or some merchandise. Hopefully in a few months we're going to release. We try to do every few months. We do the batch, and whoever wants to pre-order, buy, and then we make. And based on what we did, it just go and produce the gi. So
let us know. I'll definitely jump in on that. Get our academy going on that. So.
Awesome.
And you talk about, for people that don't have a lot of experience in jiu-jitsu, instructors come and go, and it's very rarely falling out. It's mainly financial. Like a lot of the instructors that have come and gone in my life have been like, okay, they're very dedicated. However, they don't own the academy, and they, have a family, and they can't dedicate as much time. And then they go on and they start a career. So to be able to, in this case, have an instructor that can fully dedicate their time to these kids, right, and get them on the right track and keep them in jiu-jitsu without having to get that other job, or, spend less time in the academy, that's going to be priceless for those guys.
There's, especially at this one, the one in our institute, GD Academy sponsors the coach. So this guy is just, his name is Leandro Gonzaga. It's just incredible. Since I go there to the institute every 6 months. I'm in Brazil, but just see like, man, this guy, going to his house, like he doesn't have anything. And every day, this dude is just like doing everything. So at the same time, I try to help guide him the best way, to be like, dude, I know you want to help, but there's a reason why when, the airplane is going down, they tell you to put the mask on you first, and then someone else. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to help anybody.
Right.
So in the past 2 years, he has grown a lot, and be like, no, put your foot on the floor. No, it's not like that. It's like this. So we started to like being firmer, and we started last year, because he did a little tournament, small, try to organize, and then Jiu-Jitsu Tribe came in, and now we're organizing every 6 months. The Copa Jiu-Jitsu Tribe is dedicated to kids that basically from social projects, 80% of them. So, and all of them, and so they have like a meal after, that they get a voucher, they have like a nice meal, because that's one of the things, the area that we go to, people don't realize, those kids, they go all day to the term, they go there and they don't eat.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So hunger is a big problem in South America and Central America.
Mm-hmm.
So the minor things like that, you know, that you just seem excited that, you know, like they're going to compete and there is a nice meal after.
Oh,
You
that's
know,
great.
so
Yeah.
it's and like nice medals too. Got a partnership with a Metal Vest, which is the same company that's for us, and the IBJJF. They own one of the best in Brazil. So I know the owner. So like he just charges just like cost, just make sure they have like a cool medal, you know what I mean? So for they look at it, they're like, whoa, this isn't, you know, they cannot even barely afford to go to IBJJF tournament or not. With them, we work on trips since our institute, and it's, if you have like any idea how impactful it's just a lot of those kids, they'll never leave their city. Some of them, maybe if they're lucky, they leave the state for something.
Wow.
You know, so if you get to go, imagine like international, what, you know, those experiences, you know, they actually bring to them. I've seen it help, you know, a lot of them over the years. It's life changing. It was for me when I came from Brazil, not that I came growing up like in favelas like that, but I'm just saying that for me, it was just like, I arrived and I was like, oh my God, this is incredible. People actually stop at the light.
Yeah.
Like, oh, wow.
Yeah.
One of the funniest things, because in, you know, South America, Brazil, you know, people don't respect much stuff.
No.
And then I have like, as soon as I moved in 99 to Vegas. And one of my funniest like questions that I remember when I moved here, and that was completely just genuine. I didn't know. I was like, hey, what is that? It's like, it's a carpool lane. It was, what is a carpool lane? It's like, wow, I have more than a person in a car. I was like, oh, and I was like, and people respect that, you know? And they're like, yeah, oh, like, wow, that's impressive.
Yeah.
You know, because like in Brazil, try that in Brazil, like, there's no way, dude. Everyone going to be riding the thing.
Yeah. I was stationed in Panama City for 2 years, and I lived in the economy. So I shopped and I ate at downtown Panama City. And when I first got there, plane landed, I get in a cab and I'm going to the military base, and I'm hanging on to whatever I can because the driver, the cars are like, you know, bumper to bumper, and intersections where like people are just creeping out and stopping traffic to get across intersections. By the time I left 2 years later, I was one of those drivers.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You just kind of get immersed in that culture. And the one thing that you had to respect in Panama was the double yellow line. You cross a double yellow line for any reason, they'll pull you over for that. Anything else, you know, short of murder, but anything else you get away with. It's pretty wild, man.
I know. So my first impression of the United States, I was like, man, this is, you know, it's incredible. You know, I came just for a competition, not necessarily to like, I was coming here to move.
Yeah.
I had no idea that eventually I would move abroad. It's just one of those things. Those graduating college, everything was just getting a black belt. It just felt like finishing a cycle in Brazil. Like, okay, let's do it.
Yeah. Yeah. Were you in a teaching capacity when you were in Brazil? I mean, did you have a school, or did you teach for an instructor?
Well, a common thing in Brazil, like when I grew up in jiu-jitsu, let's say, for people, just to give a little context to people too, jiu-jitsu wasn't really popular in the 80s and like maybe until like early 90s. It's not like how everyone knew what jiu-jitsu was. It definitely wasn't the case. I, at least just my personal opinion, at least in Rio where I'm from, things start to change in 1991, before the UFC still. 1991 was the year that they have a big, they call, the big Vale Tudo fight was Jiu-Jitsu against Luta Livre. Jiu-Jitsu won by like all three fights, and it showed in the main channel on the TV. They never showed again. They banned because they sell it like, oh, it's going to be open hand like it's pancreation. And dude, when they start the fight, it's like no gloves, headbutts, and they're freaking out. So they never like showed it again.
Yeah,
you know, for many, many, many years until UFC went back to Brazil. So jiu-jitsu wasn't really popular. So around that time, that's jiu-jitsu started getting momentum. And then 1993, I feel like a combination of UFC, and that's when the very first, the CBJJ, the IBJJF, you know, the national version, that's when it was created. So 93 then went kind of like, okay, starting to get the momentum in 93. And I started training in 89. In 95, I started running my own program. And it was like a Nova União affiliate because I was a purple belt.
Yeah.
And one of the idea, just to give you the context, is most of the school, I don't know, again, I'm away from like 25 years, but back then, if you say like, I'm going to make a living with jiu-jitsu, and people are going to be doing what? Like, come again?
Right.
You know, so it's kind of like, what kind of joke is that? So there's nothing really like going on that you can say, like, I want to do this for a living. And so basically it was, most of the schools, it's a fitness gym, like have whatever, fitness gym, LA Fitness or whatever.
Yeah.
And there's a room they do jiu-jitsu.
Okay.
So the instructor basically does like a deal with them, a percentage or whatever, percentage per student. So they do stuff like that. Some people just rent the space, but it wasn't just a jiu-jitsu place. So yeah, I started like that. The class was Tuesdays and Thursdays at 4 p.m. The 3:30 to like 4:30, because it was the only open they had. And
right. Yeah.
And I was like, well, I guess that's the class I'm going to try to initiate. And then I called my cousin, like, yo, we need to start training. And I was like, well, I'm going to start teaching. Like, really? Like, yeah. Like, I'll talk with my aunt, just to pay for your membership, because people need to see that I'm teaching someone.
Yep.
So I basically 1 month of private classes. and then sometimes some teenagers would come in and sit and look. And then after, a month, and then like a couple kids that live nearby start to come. Yeah. So basically I started teaching. So I can say that it's like I'm running my class, my program, but I'm not a business owner by any means. Yeah. However, when it started getting close, it was time to go to college and decide, okay, you know how it is when you start getting done with high school, and and your mom be like, what are you going to do?
Yeah.
What I mean? And then I said, like, well, I'm thinking of doing physical education, because in Brazil, even though a lot of things that people don't respect there with laws, there's certain things too that they're like really crack on. And one of them is, if you want to work as even a personal trainer, at least when I was there, you need a 4-year physical education degree. Wow. It's not a weekend course. Right. And if anyone hire like that, that's a problem. It's a big problem. Yeah. So that's one of the things they enforce. So I already made my mind that I want to make a living with jiu-jitsu. So in my mind was, one day I'll do physical education. I own a fitness gym, and I have the jiu-jitsu with it. So
that makes sense. Yeah.
So that was, because it's not that I'm trying to be an entrepreneur. No, it's just, that's the only thing I saw. Everyone did that. You know, like out of very few, at least where I'm from, not that many places I have just, you rent a place and you do jiu-jitsu here. Right. Yeah. So from there started my teaching experience, let's say.
Yeah. So I want to backtrack a little bit. Tell me about your days as a white belt and a blue belt, because you're a 6-stripe black belt. Mm-hmm. You've been a black belt for almost 30 years, I think, right? 27 years, I think.
So it's the end of 1998 to...
So 26 years, pretty close to 26 years. So take me back to your first jiu-jitsu experience. What was that like? What was your instructor like? What was the scene like? I mean, I can't imagine it was, you had a fundamentals class that you could walk into.
I wish. Well, the interesting thing is that I was aware of jiu-jitsu since I was a kid. Okay. Because I didn't grow up like with my dad. They got divorced when I was 4. My brother was 8. So my dad got exposed to jiu-jitsu like this back in the day. So he would show stuff to my brother or whatever, so which I don't have memory. Right. But my brothers, whatever my older brother said I'm going to do, I'm going to do too. So he said, like, whenever I start driving, I want to do jiu-jitsu. And I'll be like, I'm going to do it too. So I always, because there's not really schools close by or whatever. So when I was 10, 11, I got exposed to judo. I really enjoyed, but I had bad grades in school, and my mom said no mas, and said like, okay, whenever you get better. So it took me a while to improve in school. Long story short, when I was about 14, about to turn 15. So in Brazil, start driving when you are 18. So my brother was 18, I was 14. He started doing jiu-jitsu, and then I started with him. And I was in a school that was, again, inside a gym. And they have a program. The dude back then was like a competitor. He's not a well-known guy here in the U.S. or anything like that. So I was enjoying. I was 14, but like in the middle of the adult class. Yeah. and started with a friend of mine, and then my friend didn't really stay. And I stayed there only for 2 months because the dude had a falling out with the owner, and then the dude said at the gym, okay, there's no more jiu-jitsu in this gym.
Oh,
and
wow.
I was like, okay. So there was only one other school left. So the school, it was another gym that had like a very small mat. Like
Yeah.
Very. Anyway, it can go on and on with the facility.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
But anyway, so yeah, I was. But the school, the guy was nice, but like it wasn't a very good school. It was very small. I don't think he ever had more than 15 students. There was twice a week. And the feeling that I had was kind of like, this is the gym and we kind of have the jiu-jitsu program here.
Yeah.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So I go in, sometimes just me or two. So I'm there for a good like 2 years, close to. And I always, since I experienced the other teacher, so he did a lot more ground stuff. This one is more, a lot more self-defense, which I do like, but I was super curious about competition.
Yeah.
So I started bugging the hell out of him and I said like, hey, so do you think you can compete? And then like, well, there's not many tournaments, which he was right. There's not like internet. Let me see where I'm going to sign up. There's nothing. There's no magazine. There's nothing. So I just kept bugging him for like over a year, and they said like, yeah, this year you're gonna have more. So I got all pumped up and nothing, and then I just kept bugging him so much that he finally one day like, okay, I want to do an in-house tournament. I said, yes, man. It was like, finally to see this kid, get off my back.
Yeah.
So he just invited some local schools. By that point, there's like, I think maybe invited 3 other back then already from different neighborhoods or whatever, and it was a disaster.
Was it really?
It was a disaster. Well, my performance was a disaster. The tournament was just small.
Yeah, yeah.
But because the funny thing, this kind of traced back all this stuff, and eventually I'm going to talk about mental coaching. That kind of I'm going to have to kind of like touch a little bit into that as I explain, because maybe right now you're going to compete and people are going to ask like, hey, how do you feel? So like, I feel pretty, and you're going for the first time, it'll be like, I'm excited or I'm scared. Depend. You're going to have those feelings. So mine was, I had no idea what to expect. So I was excited. I was like, oh, this is cool. So I'm training for the tournament. I'm doing whatever he's telling me to do. That's supposed to be getting ready for a tournament, which was not. And then I got to the tournament, and so as soon as I start the match, the dude, boom, pull guard. And he's telling me like to open the guard, and, break the guard. So like, got it. So I did the only move that he showed me at that point. That was breaking the guard, putting my arm inside.
No.
So he managed, in less than 20 seconds, I'm inside a triangle.
Wow.
And then finish, and then they raise my opponent's arm, who was wearing a white belt, as I was wearing a blue belt.
Oh, wow.
Hello.
Wow. Yeah. Wow.
So if you're listening to this at home, how embarrassed would you feel?
It'd be a little rough. It'd be a little rough publicly. I mean, in the academy, I don't know. But,
yeah. And I mean, so right there was my first clue. Like, I guess I'm wearing a blue belt. You know what I mean? I'm not a blue belt.
Yeah.
I have one. He told me that I'm a blue belt. I test for it.
Yeah.
And like, okay. But I was just looking around some of the other kids. Nothing, when I look back, wasn't nothing like, oh my God, look at how I advanced. No, it's just simple. So I just didn't know. I wasn't introduced to. And then he said, like, oh, we're going to do an exhibition match or whatever. Okay, cool. So I just spazzed with the kid there for like 5 minutes. At the end, raised my opponent's arm. What is his belt? A yellow belt. So he was 15.
Wow.
I was 17. So I was like, man, that is not my day.
That's a rough day.
Yeah. So now here's the thing. How many people that that maybe had the bit of expectation of tournament, they competed, they not go the way they did, they never tried again because they didn't want to feel that. They didn't want to get hurt, physically, but emotionally hurt.
Yeah,
right?
a lot.
So a lot of people are like, oh, dude, like, especially like I'm a blue belt and I go in and you know what I mean? I had like that disaster. So I remember I went home and my mom said like, how was the tournament? And it was like, it was awful. It was horrible. Like I need to get out of there. But now I needed my mom's support because I needed to go to a different neighborhood to have like some of the better neighborhoods start going to like to the south side. I was in the north, and it was little by little try to get out to eventually get to a bigger school.
Yeah.
Because I didn't have access to it, and it would cost a little more. And then she was paying, so I was just begging her, to like, I want you, because I decided that's one of the things I want to mention. I like quotes, and always, it's important for you to pick like some quotes that resonate with you. And one that I always like to share, I have even in my school by Tony Robbins. It's in your moments of decisions that your destiny is shaped. Meaning that decision, I guarantee that everyone is listening and they have one point, there's one decision that because you did this, okay, now this is coming this way.
Yes.
And I had the moment of decision. It's either like I stop with this because it was a disaster. I don't want to embarrass myself. I'm just going to keep training here and then acting like I'm a blue belt and I know what's going on. Or I need to get out of there. And again, it's not like I can research, and go on Google. There's nothing like, it took me like days to start asking people where there's an academy. And then I remember coming back from school and I was in a bus and I saw a sign that just said Jiu-Jitsu competition team. I'm like, I found a place. I had no idea who it was. So I told my mom, like, Mom, I saw a place that said competition team. I have no idea I'm going to sign up. So back then, there's no like waivers with them.
Right.
You know what I mean? My mom just give the check and then like, hey, just go there and don't trust that I'm going to. So I got there. The lady said like, oh, nice. So you want to try the class? No, I'm ready to sign up. Like, nobody can try before. Like, there's no way to be worse than where I'm at right now. Like I'm going.
Yeah.
Now I'm desperate. I need to go. And my instructor was a purple belt. And eventually, not too long after he got his brown. But dude, in less than 6 months, I learned more than I learned in 2.5 years.
Wow.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Again, it's not like he is my God. It's just the levels like were different. And then eventually, because when I got there, I asked to go back to white belt. I really asked,
Was that Fernando Cruz?
Yeah.
Okay, got it. Yeah.
So I was I really told him, and now come another like good takeaway from coaches and students, because in my mind, I'm like, this is a disaster. I need to go back to white. Somehow he saw something that I didn't, So he said like, well, no, just stay, it's going to take a few months, but you will get situated. You'll be fine. So I didn't like, but I had to kind of, it is what it is.
Yeah.
And in 6 months, I felt like I was a blue belt.
Wow.
Yeah.
Now, were you pretty athletic? Is that what he saw? Okay.
Well, yeah. I mean, I always had like this inflexibility. Could be a little explosive in certain positions, and again, not knowing much, but I'm going to a place that is very weak. But I've been doing over 2 years. I need to have a clue what's going on at least, right? Like something. You know what I mean? It's not that like completely zero. I don't know anything, but it's for sure not a blue belt.
Yeah.
But and then in 6 months I started doing. So what is the point that I bring this to? Because sometimes you're going to promote a student and the student don't think that it's quite ready. Yeah. And then they're like, no, I'm not. And I always say like, maybe people from outside is seeing something that you cannot see. Yeah. Maybe because we are our worst critics. So we're always going to be harder on ourselves. So just the ability, having someone say like, no, man, I think you'll be fine. It's going to be rough. I'm not going to say you're going to be in. No, some wipeout's going to beat up during the process. Yeah. You know what I mean? And before I couldn't really train much. It was just twice a week. And in this place that I train. And then with him, I soon right away it was Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. So I had like, okay, I can train. And then not too long after, he was able to get, the slot to teach 5 days a week. Oh, wow. And then from that point on until I moved to the U.S., I trained 5 days a week. Wow. And what was the, I'm assuming you weren't driving yet. Was your brother driving you or were you taking a bus? No, by that point, yeah. Okay. By that point, I was ready. Not that I had a car when I could use my mom's car or something. Okay. But bus or whatever. That one, it was bus, not too bad distance, so it was okay. Wow. Okay. So you blossomed into the blue belt that you wanted to be. What was purple belt like? It's interesting because Man, for all the white belts who are out there and are curious about competing, take advantage and compete, because you kind of get the kinks, the nerves. What is it like? You're going to be white belt once and then try to take advantage of that. I was not exposed to any tournament as a white belt.
Right.
So my first tournament, like I said, my in-house tournament, so it didn't go too well. So that means I don't have experience.
Yeah.
Right. So now one of the things that I didn't like about Fernando is that he's like, we only go to big tournaments. So like, if we're going to lose to, someone that is good to like, dude, I'm just trying to win a match here,
Yeah.
So I wasn't concerned about if it was a big or small tournament. I just I felt like I was so behind, like I need to be out there. Now comes the connection with the mental coach, and that I don't know if anyone can relate with this, that your first tournament, you're like, okay, I'm excited. Maybe you didn't have a positive experience as far as what you thought there was going to be. So now my second tournament, I wasn't excited at all. Now it's anxiety. I already got embarrassed in the first one. This time I have to win.
Right.
Here we go. Now it's just put that stamp there. And then it's kind of like the beginning of my journey to mental coaching without knowing, kind of like how you go into the tournament, you walk into the place, and then you're like, man, I lost, I have to win, my friends are here, or whatever, you telling yourself that you have to win.
I don't want to let anybody down, that kind of thing. Yeah.
So automatically, anytime you focus on things in your life that really you can't control, it will bring anxiety. It will bring you some muscle tension. You're going to be, feel kind of like tight. And you end up not performing to the best of your ability, followed by frustration. Now it's a dangerous spot, because now what is called the vicious cycle. Yeah. Because that happened with me. So so my first tournament out, so I lost. Actually, I didn't do bad, but I lost. It was a decision, but I lost. Doesn't matter. Yeah. And then now third tournament, I already lost the two previous ones. So now I'm like double down on my paranoia. And that means you go in, now I'm bringing even more anxiety than the tournament before, right? And I got stuck in the cycle for a while. So it's like 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 tournaments, and I cannot win a match. So again, I'm trying to get to understand, as a blue belt, going with like blue belts have been around for quite some time. And it was frustrating, get to a point I wouldn't tell anybody I was going to compete. My friends who didn't train, they'd be like, dude, have you ever won a match?
Oh, man.
And I'm rough. like, dude, you should try that over there. So get to a point, it's just like, are you competing? Nope, not really. Just like, I want to wait. But what happened is, like, even those things when you're a teenager, that hits your self-esteem. You know what I mean? Now I need to prove to them. I don't prove to myself, but I want to prove to them that I can win. Yeah. And when I don't win, now I'm bringing more anxiety, because I have to win to feel good about myself. And every time you have to win, you have to fight for your self-esteem in that way. You need an outcome of a tournament for you to feel good about yourself. That's a problem. Yeah. Because you're not going to win all the time. So when you win, yay. And when you lose, it's like the words about, to end, and it's a disaster. Yeah. So until the point that I won my first match, it was a big bracket of a real state championship. But I won my first match. I just went all out. I was like, today is the day that I'm going to win a match. Yeah. And I just went all out, forearms blowing up. And then Fernando's like, okay, you have 4 more. I was like, 4 more?
Oh my gosh.
I'm ready to go. and then ended up losing next match for points. Again, did okay, but the guy did better. But at least there was a light at the end of the tunnel. Yeah. You know what I mean? That's why those small wins are important. Yeah. Or like, well, if I beat one person, that means I might be able to beat other people too. So that was starting, like, I wish I was in North Carolina last week, and I was doing a seminar in one of my best friend's affiliate, Hobson Moore. And I was mentioning to them, like, I wish I could say that I'm like Hobson, that you can count in one hand how many times you lost as a black belt, or you lost in your career, even including as a child. Yeah. I wish, you know what I mean? But I'm not. Yeah. And I felt like that jump from blue to purple is like when I was finally getting the hang of it as a blue, back then there's no worlds, there's no pans, you know what I mean? And so when I was finally getting like to the finals of whatever tournaments are considered like the biggest there, and I won, for people don't know, I won one tournament as a blue belt.
One tournament?
One small tournament.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. And the other ones, I had some like good ones that I had like probably like 3 that I took second. And back then there's no third place medal, so it's only first and second.
No kidding.
Unless was the state championship.
Okay.
And then eventually the Brazilian national. But all the other regular tournaments, you lost in semi, you're done.
You're done.
So it's getting better. Sometimes making to a semi, but not getting the medal or anything like that. But then, and then we started getting better, and then finally in '95, it was 6 months before the first Worlds. The first Worlds in 1996, and then my coach said like that it was going to promote me to the purple, and I was really trying to convince him not to. I was begging him not to. Yeah, you know, I was like, dude, I finally, you know, kind of getting some success here, and it would be a great experience to be able to go as a blue belt, you know, for to the Worlds. But again, he was seeing something that I didn't. I was already getting better. I was you know, when you're kind of pushing blue closer, the spectrum, we're getting closer to purple. So I knew that I was getting closer to that area. But if you want to be a performer or a competitor, especially in adult division, you're going to have to sit on a belt a little longer. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. And so I was finally getting the hang of it. And so I got promoted. But purple belt ended up being like my turnaround kind of like belt.
Yeah, and that was so you got your purple right before the World Championships became a thing.
Yeah, in January. I was the Worlds now they're usually like June now. Yeah. They used to be like July in Brazil in the 90s, but the very first one was in January. In January in Brazil, in Rio, and when it's summer with no AC in the facility. Yeah. So it was brutal. Yeah.
So for people who don't know, because I was in South America, so you have rainy season and you have dry season. So it's opposite of what we have here. So December in Brazil it's rough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's very
rough.
humid.
Yeah.
So that was the first time that I actually vomited in a tournament from dehydration, and just kind of drinking fast, and then like just coming back. Yeah. A lot of people getting sick that day. And because of that, the next year, the Worlds have basically like a 1.5 year stretch, you know, because they said like, dude, you can't do it again. Yeah. So you have to, in July, that's the opposite. That's when it's a little colder. So, and it was very different too here. Since the Worlds came to the US, anyone can sign up to compete. Now the black belt, you know, they have like you need the points or not. But back then, you need to have qualifications to get to the Worlds.
Is that at all belt levels?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And so I couldn't get in. I wasn't pre-qualified because I took, this was one of the state actually. If you're first and second in your state, you could compete. So I took third, but that was third, and back then when there's actually that one, there's no medal for third. That was one of the first and second. So even though it wasn't a semi, I wasn't qualified. So what they did is, imagine like right now you have the Worlds, and the week before there's a final trial, so your last chance to go win, to compete.
Okay.
Yeah. So I was able to compete, and 2 people per division to go. So if you have like a big bracket, they run 2 brackets. There's no really finals. The winner of each bracket to go, you know? And so, you know, the funny thing is like going to this match, as soon as I started my first one, I'm going to studios kind of pretty strong. I was like, oh, this dude here is no joke. Okay. You know, like I knew that he was pretty good. And then with about a minute, they stopped the match because his name was Gustavo too, but he was supposed to be in the other match.
Oh,
so
no.
we stopped, and so I would have to restart with another person. And now the interesting thing is, I ended up winning my side of the bracket. He won his side, and we both took third at the Worlds in '96.
Wow, that's pretty awesome.
Weird.
Yeah.
Like the odds of, because sometimes it happens in a tournament. You go against someone that could be your final.
Yeah.
You know, and it's right in your first match. It sucks, but.
Yeah. Well, you know, the thing about world championships, and any championship, I really believe, like, especially if you qualify, I really believe that anyone in the bracket can win if the bracket lines up perfectly. So many things have to go exactly right for you to win that championship, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I was talking, when I was in North Carolina, I did a mental coaching session. So I do kind of pass out an assessment. You just kind of answer yes or no and a few things. And one of the questions is, like, do you have a hard time focusing on the now? And then one of the students asked me, like, so during the tournament and stuff, and so I said, like, what do you mean? What is an example? Like, well, a good example is you're in a tournament and you're thinking, oh, in my third match, I'm gonna go against like, you don't know if you're gonna pass your first match. I appreciate, I like the confidence, you know what I mean, that you're gonna go there.
Yeah.
But on the other side, there's another person that is training and has goals and dreams as well.
Yeah.
You know, and anything can happen. Of course, it's going to come down to the most skills. There's some people that maybe are not quite ready to go deeper in certain brackets because of some high-level people that are there or whatever. But yeah, so just being focused on another, be like, dude, one match at a time. You know, like, okay, you can be aware that this can happen, but I'm not going to be putting my focus, because now it's taking away from now.
Yeah.
You're about to compete and you look like, oh, if I win my third match, you know, and a lot of the times, you know, probably someone might be doing this here and saying, like, yeah, I try to, like, save my tank for, you know, like, for the deeper rounds, but deeper round never came. You know what I mean? It happens.
Yeah. That, you know, I do a lot of visualization, and I really believe in manifesting, right? I really believe that, you know, a lot of times it doesn't quite go my way, but I really truly believe that when I visualize, I don't visualize a match. I don't visualize an opponent. I don't visualize any of that. I visualize the podium. I visualize the after party. I visualize what I'm going to be wearing, who I'm going to be with, how we're going to be celebrating, what I'm going to be eating. And that helps me, like, not think of my opponents. I see through them, right, to the end result, right? A happy finish, right? And, you know, it's been ever since I got my black belt, the world championship podium has been elusive, to say the least, right? But I still believe I can do it. There's times, and maybe you can help me with this. There's times when I, you know, like this past Master Worlds, for example, I won my first match by, you know, I think it was like 10-0. I submitted my second opponent, and then I'm standing there next to the mats about to go on. I was like, there's no way I lose today. I just feel too good. There's no way I lose. And I lost. And I'm like, shit, now what, you know? And that's really hard, because I had convinced myself that I was not going to lose that day. And then it happened, you know? And then the disappointment really hit me hard that day, you know? And I never find myself as one that I never defined myself by wins and losses, but that one really stung. And I don't know why. I don't know why that one was so special or not.
Yeah. The word that he used, kind of, you know, like, you know, convincing yourself, you know, that you did. That means, like, maybe you felt like you did do your homework. And there's times that I thought I was ready, you know, and I wasn't. There's times that I was, and I just didn't perform well.
Yeah.
I remember, like, having experiences before. I heard Tony Robbins saying something once, that I have a few experiences in my life. Maybe some people can relate. When he talks about, there's a difference in believing and having a conviction. You know, and the conviction is just something so strong, and not like in a cocky like way that like I'm the bad. It's just like, dude, I really believe I'm ready.
Yeah,
you know, I really do. And for you to get to that point, that means that years of training and or frustration, success, failure or not. And I have situations that I was really convinced that I was going to and did well. And there's times that I just didn't, you know, even though I was prepared. And for sure, it does go and sting, you know, a little more that I really felt. But I felt the times that were that I did have the conviction and something happened. I don't know. It's just, I felt like I was a little better trained.
Yeah.
But it's just sometimes it's just the way it goes.
Yeah.
You know, it's tough for us to sometimes to try to pick point, because a lot of the times in jiu-jitsu, I talk with people all the time when you like analyzing your performance and things like that. Sometimes we lose a lot of the breakdowns that I did some breakdown this week in 2 of matches. Sometimes it's not something that a technical mistake, oh, I made this wrong. No, sometimes it's a choice that you make during a match.
Yeah.
So it's tough for you to like, let me drill the choice and like that. It's just becoming more aware that when this happened, like now, what is going to be, something already happened, move on.
Yeah.
You know, so sometimes is what kind of guard system you wanted to play. How long did you play in that for? Did you feel afraid of going out of comfort zone and try to risk, or you just kind of stay here?
Yeah.
So a lot of the things when sometimes we, I've been part of it, everyone at some point being part of the like, I've been robbed, I've been screwed. Don't get me wrong, it sucks because when you know that it's like the rules and like, dude, that was bad. It was not point. These are the tough ones.
Yeah.
However, man, at the end of the day, we need to analyze the whole match.
Yeah.
You know, it's like a basketball game. The dude misses the last shot, and everyone's blaming him. That's his fault. Like, what about all the other plays? What about the rebounds the guys didn't get? What are the miss shot? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The missed opportunities, and you're gonna blame it in one,
Right.
one play.
Yeah, the other 47 minutes and 59 seconds that the game went on. Yeah.
And in jiu-jitsu is the same thing. There is in 2000, that was 10 years now. I created this list of the top 10 mental mistakes jiu-jitsu competitors make and how to avoid them. You can see them on YouTube.
Yeah, I saw that.
And I did like based on mistakes that I felt like I made. You know what I mean? In different moments of my career, regardless of the belt, I feel like everyone will have internal battles. Some people handle the internal battles better than others. Some people handle anxiety better than others. So for me, like looking at the mistakes that I made, you know, and how do I try to like just convey to people certain things. I know they did a lot of like, you know, blaming, like I said, oh, the referee or whatever.
Yeah.
You know. But when I look back on some of the things that I learned, for example, there's like one of the mistakes is fear of making costly mistakes. Like you go to your, because sometimes, let's say, I'm saying this from my previous experience. Yeah. It took me a while to get to a 500 record, let's put it this way, in jiu-jitsu.
Wow.
Right? Because I had so many losses in the beginning, and then, you know, so took me a little bit. So now when you find a certain success, certain moves that are working, I'm like, that's it. That is the move. And you tunnel vision that this is what I'm going to do. But sometimes the situation doesn't present itself, or it's not the angle, whatever you need is not there. And you need to audible and do something else and possibly play a different system. So I think it's a good example. Maybe if people have competed, have more experience, and then maybe try to get a scenario that, let's say, there's a match that it could be 0-0. There's 2 minutes left. You're playing your favorite guard. You're trying everything that, you know, your best attacks, everything it's going on. And they're just shutting you down well. So now this is what I call the moment, the should I stay or should I go? So that means, should I stay here and insist on what I'm doing? Or should I go out of my comfort zone and possibly play a different system? Yeah. You know, whatever. You're playing half guard and then I'm switching to a butterfly guard and whatever. You just doing this. So now that's when it starts the internal battle. Because that voice, it can come and say like, okay, sometimes you stay there, you know, for the 2 minutes, and right at the end you pull it off. Yay. Yeah. Nice. Yeah. And when you don't, you're going to have one of the mental mistakes is dwelling on your mistakes. You're going to hit your head in a pillow. You're going to say like, oh, so stupid. Why I didn't do this? Why I should, you know what I mean? So being able, or to say go and go.
Yeah.
Try and go. Now, a lot of the times when you're making that decision, that choice of, okay, I'm going to go, sometimes that negative voice I call the dark past, and you say like, wait, where are you going, dude? Stay right here. It's a lot safer. And if you go and it doesn't work, he catch in transition, is going to pass. If you pass, you're going to lose. You don't want to lose. You don't want to disappoint anybody. So automatically in a vicious cycle, 4 or 5 different mistakes. You know what I mean? And I'm like, I don't want to lose. I don't want to be judged. I'm going to stay right here. And then at the end, 0-0, and now you're going to complain to the ref that it's like, oh, because I was attacking more, and he was like, you chose to stay there. Is there your fault or the ref's fault? You chose to be there, and you don't want to put yourself there. So having the ability of like pull the trigger when you have to, it's a kind of like a practice too. The more you do, and one thing that I always mention to people. Not every time, and this like 100% conviction, say this, every time I attempt like something that was like, okay, I need to go, I don't think I ever regret it. It doesn't mean that I was successful with what I did. I just saying that I didn't regret. Because I left and it didn't work, and I'm like, so there's no like, I wish I have done, like, no, I did, and I learned something because I really messed up. It is what it is. You know? So it's better than like, oh my God, you know, like, hey, I try, and it's awesome when it works. When you really like, you go out of your comfort zone and do it, it feels different than it feels, you have a different type of satisfaction, more than like the win, that internal win that, dude, I was battling in my head, go, and my negative voice said, dude, no, stay here, don't go, it's too dangerous, go, and then I do it. So I feel like guys are able to feel that relaxed to just do what they do, and they can do that consistently. They're the best out there. You know, the most consistent guys, they can perform, and sometimes not even about winning every time, but like you see that every time is performing like they do in training. They feel relaxed, and they made mistakes and made poor choices or whatever. It happens. You break it down and let's move on.
And you've been around, you know, you train with the best in the world, and over nowadays with Shaolin, and you know, a lot of the really, you know, big names in the history of jiu-jitsu, right? Present history of jiu-jitsu. But what are some of the attributes that you see in champions, like real champions? What are some things they all have in common?
Man, I'm going to give just again, this is just based on like what I live. If there's something that I'm not familiar, I just say like I'm not. I think not everyone, but most people have like someone you look up to, or maybe is a training partner that you grew up like training around and seeing like, man, you know, this person. Or sometimes could it be an athlete from a different school, but you just appreciate their work. So I got very lucky to be training at Andrew Pederneiras school at the time that I was, as you mentioned, mid-90s. That's when Andre wasn't even in MMA. He would have some guys that were getting into MMA, but his focus was gi 100%. So I was very lucky to be in that group. And my role model in jiu-jitsu is Vitor Shaolin. So probably a lot of people, the new people, maybe never heard. There's sometimes, you know, people are, it's like they always have new, like you talk about maybe someone in an NBA, you know, like old side, someone's like, oh, I never heard of, like, what do you mean you never heard? You know? So in jiu-jitsu we have a lot of these moments of like, what do you mean you never heard this person? You know, so that's when I say that I'm old. You know, they're like, oh my God. So why he knows that he's a good personal friend, and I have mentioned this in different interviews too. There's some guys who are just the different ones. The different ones, I'm saying, the mental, the like higher level of like obsession. And every sport you're gonna have like the freaks, like the Jordans, the Kobe's, you know what I mean? Like guys, them too. That's the way they're wired. You know what I mean? And in jiu-jitsu, he's that I have met.
Of course. That
I have met, that I've been around. In jiu-jitsu, he's by far in the lead of this pack. I mean, it's not by accident the guy won 3 black belt world titles, then stopped jiu-jitsu to go to MMA, do his MMA career. But what impressed me on him wasn't the quality of his jiu-jitsu. Of course, the dude is good. There's no question about that. His commitment since he was a teenager. There's no little parties. There's no messing around. This dude is like fully just obsessed with the process of getting better and improving. And he was very young. He was, he got his black belt. He was turning 18,
Wow.
So for him, and it's a lot for a young kid that just wants to go to war, the whole time, especially in the 90s. There's no class for it's just war room.
Good luck.
Yeah, it's just war room every day. There's a time and place for that. Now it's very different. But back then in the 90s, maybe some of you know Fabio Gurgel, one of the founders of Alliance. He used a great terminology. He said, if you train jiu-jitsu, if you have trained jiu-jitsu in the 90s and you still around, you're part of a select group are called the survivors. You know what I mean? Because you get out of work, you go in a war room and it'd be like, dude, I just got out of work, I'm just trying to get a few rounds. It was just like, everything was about competition. Highly ego-driven and...
Ego-driven, really?
Well, I mean, like, we need to beat that team and we need to beat, what I mean? Like, each one have, like their own goals, but there was a lot of like rivalry in the 90s with that.
Gotcha. Okay. I mean?
There's a lot of the soccer roots ingrained into that.
Right. Yeah. I didn't think about that.
So there was a lot of like, and then 2000s start to get better, but it was, super intense. So it's not for everyone. But with that said, when I use someone as an example, it's for sure the commitment, the obsession with the process. So he definitely achieved something. Very, very few individuals, I don't know how many, has won a gi black belt world championship once. Now imagine do 3 times.
Wow. Yeah.
And he took second and won. When he was 18 years old, he lost to Hoyler in the finals.
Wow.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So when you're 18 years old, you're going against a guy that is fighting his third generation.
Yeah.
He was competing in everything. It was a guy that, besides Shaolin, is like, especially because I know him, I know his story, but besides him, a guy that I have the most amount of respect, that's a guy that I look up to, is Hoyler.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just
cool.
Because everything that he accomplished, gi, no gi, MMA, he didn't have to prove anything to anybody, and he was always like putting on the line. So I always like appreciate, like him challenge himself, winning worlds 4 times in a row, and he was in his 30s going against a bunch of young kids.
Wow, I didn't know he was in his 30s. Wow. Yeah.
So ADCC 3 times, a lot of MMA fights, fought Sakuraba, you know what I mean? Like, so but yeah, so I would say the commitment, that really the commitment with the mission. I would have to say from students, people that I have coached, and then sometimes people depend on what goal they have. Yeah. But a black belt adult, that's a long shot. Like,
it's a very long shot. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a very unique plan, and it man, it's a tough one. But the cool thing is be able to see, like, I have people that are obsessed with the process for like a certain period of time. Yeah. The problem is, those freaks, they do that for a long period of time. Yeah. That kind of commitment, obsession for years, that is impressive. Yeah. Be able to have that consistency, it's pretty incredible.
I think I admire people who say no to everything but what contributes to their goal. Mm-hmm. I admire that a lot. And I imagine Vitor was that way.
Yeah. And that's why sometimes it's a blessing and a curse when this is happening, because you're going to rub a lot of people the wrong way.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I mean? You see how many stories people have about Jordan rubbing people the wrong way.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
The dude is just a cycle. You know what I mean? It's just incredible.
Well, I mean, think about like his inner circle was psychos. Yeah. They were all just psychopathically, drawn to one thing. He hung out with only people that thought, like him.
And then people, when they're not, which many of them they're not, and now there's going to be some clash there. Because in their mind, it's like, but I don't understand. You said you want to win. You said you want to be a champion. Yeah. I don't understand. Like they come from they cannot put together, like they don't understand.
Yeah.
So I'm definitely talking about like the highest level.
Yes.
But I feel that is like the commitment with the mission, the discipline, the long-term discipline.
Yeah.
It's pretty impressive.
Yeah. Yeah. I went to a seminar this weekend with Giancarlo Abadoni. And, of course, the technique was amazing. He's an amazing competitor. But he did a Q&A. And basically, this is all he does. Like, he doesn't have a life outside of, training, jiu-jitsu. There's no distractions. And if you're able to clear the distraction, and a lot of them are self-imposed. You know what I mean? Like, you want to hang out with your friends. You want to play video games. You want to stay up late. That's not what they are. They're just so committed. So I really admire that. I wish I had a little bit more of that in me, but that's why I'm not a world champion.
Yeah, man. Different times.
Yeah.
Now it's getting, especially for that level of, say high level in jiu-jitsu. What is high level? What's our Olympics as far as gi goes? That's the worlds.
Yeah, absolutely.
June, black belt. Mm-hmm. And I say like the collar belts are, man, yes, they're great accomplishments, but they're not a black belt.
Right. Yeah.
There's a reason why they have NCAA and they have NBA and
100%.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just different levels.
Yeah.
And I think when I start teaching, like I got quick into like, I want to have my team. I want to compete, all that stuff. I always enjoyed. And I had a goal of one day producing a black belt adult world champion. That's something just kind of like a personal goal as coaching. And so over the years, I started teaching, of course, when I was in 95, but I'm saying like, let's say Arizona when I got here in 2000.
Yeah.
So from that point, 2007, that's when the first worlds came, the first time of the worlds in U.S. Until that time, it was just in Brazil. I got to take, I think, 2 people, maybe before they came to maybe 2 or 3. But it was a process of little by little, like to be able to build a blue belt world champion, purple, brown, and then black. We lost in the final in 2016 with Sarah Black.
Yes,
lost.
That's right. Yeah.
She competed against Pia. And Sarah, for people who don't know, she got her school, South Mountain.
Yeah.
So now it's almost, I think it's been a little bit over a year.
Yeah.
And I can say, man, she's the most disciplined athlete that I have encountered in my school.
Yeah.
For a good chunk,
yeah.
And then just the discipline and commitment to her mission. Like very, I have a bunch of guys who get close to how committed, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
She was with her, the finish, winning worlds, and then we go out to eat, and she's drinking water and eating a salad. That's a celebration. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's like 100%. There's no like little super extra committed.
Yeah.
And that was 2016, and I felt like I was closing a cycle in my life, of like training, committing my time to world-class athletes and so forth. Of course, like at the school nowadays, Josh Rodriguez, the main coach that teach most of the classes. He is the coach that most of the time they're with the guys, and of course I teach a couple classes. I attend Josh's classes too because I always learn stuff, and man, I help any way I want. But I'm not like I used to be. Like I'm traveling with the team. I'm studying footage. I'm doing this. Yeah. It's just with the time. It's just I felt like okay, that was it never felt like. Next year we go back again. We're gonna try it. It just felt like the end of a cycle of like getting involved with high level jiu-jitsu as a coach. Yeah. So just choice.
Just the team you built there attracted so. I mean, you and I crossed paths around 2013, and I remember just the team you assembled there at around that same time, and there were people coming from around the world to prep for Worlds with your team. And that was amazing. Like, I was never in the room training, but gosh, man, it seemed like it was it was something special at the time.
Yeah, and man, it's very tough to get the people that are going to be committed. A big difference that people ask me, like, hey, do you think the U.S. you're gonna pass Brazil as far as like medals or like results in high level and stuff like that, or more foreigners? I always think, like, number one, Brazil is massive. It's huge. Okay, it's a big country, dude.
Yeah.
They've been doing jiu-jitsu for many years. I feel the main difference that I have noticed over the years is this. Here in U.S., you can train and I'm going to compete or whatever, and then things are maybe not going well. You do have a chance to get a job, and then, just your life just go to a different route. A lot of those kids in Brazil be like, yo, that's it. That's it.
There is no alternative.
I have to do well.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So when they come here, anybody that's coming from Brazil, for the most part, they're coming to compete here. They have the extra hunger.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That are like, I need, like what they had to go through just to fundraise, to get a ticket, to come to the U.S., to apply for a visa, to get a passport, all that when you live in a favela. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that kind of why I feel that's why Brazil still going to be like on top. Of course, I love when I see like other countries, doing well, because it's awesome. It's awesome to see. It's so good for jiu-jitsu. But I think it's gonna take a long time until I think maybe, like, for example, in the lower belts, purple and blue, you're gonna see a lot more of the foreigners because not a lot of them can come here.
Yeah.
Brazilian nationals, blue and purple are like legit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I have a feeling that, maybe it's just an opinion, that it's harder than worlds as far as blue and purple. Now, brown and black, people already traveling more. The best already coming here.
Course.
So the worlds will be stronger than Brazilian national as far as brown and black. Just an opinion, but I feel that difference of there's nothing more motivating than necessity.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
When you feel like, I need to eat, I need to survive, this is all I got.
Yeah. Hunger's a hell of a spice, man.
Yeah. And you have to make it happen. So I think this is a kind of like a plus in a mindset.
Yep.
It's just very different.
Well, just going back to, what was the gentleman's name, the one that you sponsor in Brazil? You go visit him a couple times a year, the instructor out there that has nothing, but he still gives his time to his kids. People don't, here's the thing. We have the convenience of proximity, right? Long Beach is pretty easy to get to, right? But if we had the world championships in Brazil every other year, I bet there wouldn't be a lot of Americans going to Brazil.
Yeah, it absolutely change. There's no
that
doubt.
would change a lot.
Yes, especially like the lower belts, especially like blue and purple. And like I said, brown still would have a lot more. Dude, there are so many good people out in Brazil that people have no idea they're out there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That just don't have opportunity. It's scary.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's so like, and the kids, by the time they get, like, you see how young, incredible they're getting, like 15, 16, 17, like, Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
It's just incredible. But yeah, man, I feel that kind of motivation, like you said, it's easy for us to go, and people don't realize. I have one of the social projects that I visited in Bahia, in Brazil. So that's the program that they have. They teach the class on the street, right? So the coach lives close by. So I saw someone did a mini documentary, went there to visit. This guy that used to visit places, make little videos and stuff. So I saw him interviewing him and showing them training on the street of like a bus, like right next to the mat. So like not safe at all.
Wow.
Like not safe at all. We have all that and our YouTube channel too. So when I saw that, I was like, dude, I need to visit this place. I need to see what is this about. So I went there, I think maybe 2018. And and it's right in the middle of two big neighborhoods that divided by the cartels. So there's always like wars in between two cartels, and there's like awful stories and stuff there. So I met one of the kids there. His name is Melky, kind of like the Melky, like Melky Gavon, because that Melky. He was a blue belt. He was still a juvenile. He was about to get. Got to green belts, about to get his blue. So I went there and I asked, the teacher was kind of tell me a little bit of some of the stories, that like rough stories of kids. Oh, that kid right there, just kind of blows your mind. So, so I said, who is the one that is standing out here the most? You see it like, oh, that one right there, he wins everything locally, but we never been out of the state because we can go to Brazilian nationals or whatever, And I said, you know what, well, I'll help him out in some way, because that's some of the. So that stuff is not Jiu-Jitsu Tribe. It's more like that kind of give back, like trying to find some way to just like, okay, we do something. So I got Eddie from Agro to like, hey, because it's small, like, hey, do you have some products, that we can give to him, so he feels like, wow, someone believes in me. So since then, Eddie said no problem, and so every time I see there's a trip, we give him stuff, gear, a hat, or whatever,
awesome.
What I mean? So he, the first thing I asked her, like, what's your goal? And it's like, well, I want to be a world champion. And I asked something that I already knew the answer was, do you have a passport? And it said no. I was like, well, without a passport, you ain't going nowhere, you know? And of course, couldn't afford. So we made it happen. At least like you did you need to have your passport on your hands, because when an opportunity knocks your door, it can be like, oh, I'm going to apply. That's too late.
Yeah.
You need to be like, where's the passport? It's right here.
Yeah. You
need to be ready to go. So we're able to get this, and then got him to go to Brazilian Nationals in 2022, and then got canceled because in 2020 or because of COVID.
Right.
And so that was a bummer. But then with 2004 so 22, he was actually finally able to send him to Brazilian Nationals again. So that was his first year as an adult. And Rodrigo Feijão, I don't know, for some of the listeners, don't know, a lot of high-level guys. We trained back then, and Novo União too is a good friend of mine. And he has a house that a lot of his pros live at. A lot of kids from different projects around the country.
Okay.
They live in a house. And I told him, like, hey, he's going to compete. Take a look at him. Meet him. If you like the kid, and you have space in a house, I'll sponsor him to move and train with you guys. So he met him, and then at the tournament, he won one match and lost the second one, whatever. Very athletic kid, explosive, but like a lot of holes in the game when you talk about high level.
Yep.
And then Feijão said, like, yeah, no problem. Just bring him. I like him. Seems like a good kid. So that was July 2022 that he moved there. So Feijão was hired to teach the Abu Dhabi national team. So he was there for like a month. And because sometimes he travels, teaching different places. So they like so much his work that they asked, like, hey, there will be the world pro, and then we'd love you to stay here 5 more weeks. And they even flew in his family to stay there for a little bit. They said, like, dude, I have a lot of responsibilities. It's like, I can't stay away from all my stuff for that long. So they really insisted. They like pay whatever he was asking for, and said, like, if you fly 10 of my boys here, I'll stay. And then it said, like, done.
Wow.
So got there, like, who has passport ready? So he boom. So
he
was
so
ready.
Cool. Yeah.
So he was able to go there, spend a month in Abu Dhabi, compete at the World Pro, and win his division.
Wow. That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So that just opened the door for him again, him to be like, wow, look at this world. You know what I mean? He's like in a position that the family involved with crime, that kind of stuff too. For him to be, this kid was so close to be involved in crime and stuff. So close, So for him, I was like, oh my God, this is completely different. So they got a new deal with a new sponsor. Same thing, sponsor like 10 people to go to European. So he flew to France last year for free. Wow. So he ended up not placing well. That one, he was kind of injured, but ended up not getting the result. And then Feijão went to Saudi Arabia. So he got invited to teach there for, like, he got a deal going on there. So he took him to be there in training because he took some of the competitors. So he was there for like 6 weeks.
Wow.
To almost 2 months, and just in a place that they're being bodies for people who are training there, because it brings some tougher competitors.
Yep.
So now he's being exposed to all this. Finally got his American visa, competed at the No-Gi Worlds, took third in December.
Okay.
And unfortunately, that's one of the matches that sometimes when mistakes happen, but he was right there in the mix. Now comes the worst part is last week he was supposed to come to Arizona he was going to compete at the Worlds and stay in Arizona for about a month for like just visit places, train, And then because when he came in December, they gave him 1 week to stay in the country. That was it, his visa. And then he went back and had to renew. So he went there to renew, to compete, come here, and they deny him.
Oh, why would they deny it?
I have no idea. So it's some of the stuff that happens that is very frustrating, you know what I mean? Because it's very clear he's not coming here to move here.
Right, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He's just like, but so we're going to see if he's can try to apply in a different state.
Okay.
Yeah. So what is the, like the moral of the story here is not just to say like, look how great of a person I am, because like,
I know.
He's just conveyed to you that, man, when sometimes the little bit that you give it back. When I say sponsor, it sounds like I'm sponsoring thousands of dollars. No, dude, it costs me 1 student per month to help this kid.
Wow.
1 student.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's not like I'm dumping money. It's times 5, which helps in Brazil.
Of course.
You know?
Yeah.
So it's not like I'm killing myself to help a kid, just giving just one of the students amount to pay for him to go.
Yeah.
So kind of giving back to people, just like whatever you feel like give. I'm not saying Jiu-Jitsu Tribe, whatever nonprofit organization. What can you support?
Yeah.
What cause that you connect with that you can support? Doesn't have to be Jiu-Jitsu, but I think it's important to be involved with something, because there are many times that if you think about moments in your life, there's someone that barely knew you, just give you a little push with something that, like move things a little better because of this maybe quick interaction, maybe.
Yeah.
And then your life went to a different place.
Yeah. I mean, the first time I ever heard at risk was a counselor describing me to a teacher in high school.
Wow.
And, I was going down a wrong path. It was really bad. And luckily I joined the military. My life changed, all that stuff. But when I told my story to a friend of mine, just kind of background stuff, things that I regret, things that I could have done better. And he looked at me, he said, you were one mentor away from a totally different life. And that's something I think that Jiu-Jitsu Tribe can provide, right? Those mentors for those kids that need that, that need that guidance. And I think what you're doing is fantastic, man. That's really cool.
Yeah. And could go on and on with the stories that we hear.
Yeah.
And man, so now he on this, and this is just one example. There's so many kids like around Brazil, or they're just traveling and changing their lives because of the opportunity of jiu-jitsu, which back then when I started, there's no way, there's no way. I thought about it like, because the first pans, I think they put on the website of 96, but they did one in 95. So I knew about the existence, like I was starting to come, but I didn't even know, how do I go there? I didn't even know what to do, what to add, I had no idea. So that was, now it's very different, it's tough, of course, because being 5-1 for you to raise the money to bring, right? So I don't know if it's going to happen this year, but our goal is bring 3 kids from the institute and the coach to spend a week in Arizona.
Nice.
Same thing. Come here. One of the weekends that we have one of the AZBJJL tournaments, and they get to train, get to visit. Again, just that ability to see other things, it's life-changing for them. It really is that, man, there's a lot more out there than just what I see, or crime, or violence, or whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And, what you said earlier about some of these kids have never left their neighborhood, much less their state, you know, and being able to come out here and, you know, go to different schools and, you know, meet the community in Arizona. Cause we have a great, and you're a big part of that, you know, bringing the community together. That's one of the topics I want to touch on a little bit. But I think it'd be, you know, like you said, it'd be such an opportunity for them to see, you know, things outside their four walls, you know, in Brazil or wherever they come from. Right.
Yes, for sure. It just happens to be in Brazil. And of course, me coming from there, I'm going to connect a lot more of the cause with people here. That's why I'm trying to get more stuff that I can find here in the US so people can connect to, that is not just Brazil, but like whoever is doing a great job and we can help.
Yeah, I'm sure they're out
somehow.
there. Yeah, actually, a friend of mine is in town, and he's a blue belt, but he moved to Alaska. He lives on a reservation in Alaska, and he started a little jiu-jitsu community there. So it's pretty cool. I'll send you some information on those guys and see if, because I'm going to send them a bunch of gis and stuff because they don't have a lot, you know. Yeah. But I think it's a worthwhile cause. So that I'll connect you guys.
Nice.
It's really cool. So two things I want. Yeah, definitely.
Just keeps growing.
Two things I want to talk about. Number one, what's it like competing in the Tijuca Tennis Club? Because you see the old videos, you know, and it's big crowds and it's pretty wild. What's that like?
The interesting thing when I look back, because you just see from outside, you don't know what it's like. Bathroom, locker rooms, like, dude.
Yeah, neighborhood.
Yeah. So it's interesting. Like somehow, you know, this gymnasium, they have like professional back then. I don't even know if they do, but there was like professional basketball games we play there, or like volleyball, whatever.
Tennis too, right?
Yeah, they have the tennis. They have like a court outside.
Oh, gotcha.
Like, you know, but like for that classic gymnasium. But dude, that place is disgusting. I mean, it's disgusting. Like you go to the bathroom, you don't touch anything, you flush with your foot. You know what I mean? It's like disgusting. And I'm like, how the hell professional teams play here?
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
This is insane. So, cool, like the vibe.
Yeah,
you know, definitely it's cool. You know, cool that is like, it's one of the things that I think people go there for the first time that they notice is like how loud, you know, it gets.
Yeah.
My good friend Bruno Bastos took his son to compete in Brazil, in the kids division. And then the gyms in São Paulo, so he's getting close. And then he just hears this loud, it's like an explosion. And he's like, Dad, what is this? Is the tournament. His eyes just go like this, like, oh my God. It's just people banging and screaming and loud. Yeah, it's different, no, but it's cool. It for the time that was, but tournaments, you know, there, you know, definitely not a great place to do it, but like the history, which is cool. You know, started the first Worlds. I think it was, if I'm correct, 3 mats.
3 mats for Worlds. Wow. How many competitors do you remember? I know I'm taking you back, but
but it has to. It has to be under 500.
Wow.
It has to be.
Wow.
You know, so that was pretty small. You know, an interesting fact. I interviewed some of the guys that were involved in this incident. 1996, the Worlds. It was the first time a person wore a blue gi.
No kidding.
Yeah.
It was all white.
Yeah.
Well, it was all patched up, right? But they were white.
But like old style. Like if you have those nice white, you know, people make fun of you. Look at this gi. Oh, nice. You know what I mean? Like it's nice when it's gray and it stinks. You know what I mean? So you only have one gi, and there's no washing and dry in Brazil. It's just wash and just hang back then. It just hang it. So sometimes it won't dry for the next day. And it'd be like, okay, so we just don't wash.
That's what it is. Yeah.
So these two guys they did really well. One of them, it's actually fought in MMA, Carlos Barreto, very well-known guy. Back then, he was a brown belt. So they did a great job of just selling the sponsorship to the game. There's nothing in the rules saying, like, well, you cannot wear blue or whatever.
Okay.
You know, there's nothing saying like that because no one ever brought it up. But one of the sponsors, Atama, they did kimonos for judo. So judo already had it.
Gotcha.
You know, and then so they thought about it like, what if you do a cut, you know, like that, you know, and they kind of ask them, if there's anything, they didn't want to say that they're going to do it, but they kind of like try to ask in a way that if I wear here, you cannot say that I
hypothetical kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah. So they have full of patches, and they did a great job because patches from companies away from the jiu-jitsu market.
Okay.
Which is like, I lived this whole thing of the sponsorship back then. So, which was a great move because most of the jiu-jitsu brands don't have money. Most of them, especially if you're not the main guys, you're just someone coming up. Don't expect to get paid, and it's not gonna happen.
Right. Yeah.
So it needs to be like a bigger company, most likely out of jiu-jitsu. So when they both got there, they both brown belts. One was a rooster weight, one was ultra. I think was super heavy or something. So when they got there, they said like you can't compete. So he said like why not? So there's this whole thing. They didn't want to let him. So the tournament stopped. Okay, and then he had this company that was a water brand, was like the whole logo, the whole thing was blue, right? So the bottle was blue, and they were one of their sponsors. So they kind of try to put like, hey, this year's because it wasn't, but said like because of my sponsor, if I don't compete, like all this year we're gonna lose, and it's gonna hurt you guys because any other company that is away from jiu-jitsu going to be like, well, I'm going to sponsor someone.
Oh, smart. Yeah.
If I cannot display my brand. And then they have to, on the spot, make the decision that, okay, and announce in front of everyone, like, because people be like, who are the ETs, right? They're like, oh my God, like, and, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then they explain, and then that was it. That was the first time, and never look back. And then companies start to do more, generating more stuff, and then kind of goes on and on.
Wow.
Kind of a trip.
Yeah, that's wild. And it's so, today it's almost comical, right? Like, oh, what's a big deal about a bluegie? That was a big deal.
Yeah.
That was a really big deal. So it's very traditional martial art, right? Mm-hmm. So when we talked about the pre-qualification, tell me about winning worlds in '97.
I think it kind of comes back to what we talk about, that building that confidence. Mm-hmm. It's kind of part of my journey of having like basically like negative level of confidence, just low confidence. Like I had 0%. I mean, like I didn't even think that I could win a match. So it took me a while to kind of start believing, that I could do it. So in '96, I ended up taking 3rd. Yep. But it was I wasn't training with Andrew yet, Andrew Pederneiras.
Right.
That was right after. After that, I started training with him. And that's when things started to change because I got exposed. I had to go to I had like multiple walking distance schools on my house. And I chose one that would take 45 minutes on a bus to go there to train. You know what I mean? Because I knew like I have to be with those guys, what they're doing. Because I was kind of like the big fish in my small school, you know what I mean? And then by that point, my coach just made some choices. He was a police officer too, and then he stopped teaching. And I had to start looking for a place to train. And I was already looking into Andre, what he was doing, how his team, it wasn't famous in the community, but it was kind of growing up,
Is he the founder of Nova Niao?
Yes, one of them, yeah.
One of them, okay.
Yeah, so Shaolin was a blue belt, so a lot of those guys just started the beginning of Nova Niao. So when you start training with people that, like you feel like, man, they're better than you. Yeah. And you start absorbing like the good vibe to you, because sometimes I'm not generalizing, okay, but I'm just from my experience. I was in a small school with a lot of kids. I'm fighting for my self-esteem. So is all my training partners. Right. You know what I mean? Like, can we win? I don't know. The guy's from that school. Oh my God, he's sponsored. You know what I mean? Yeah. So now, the Jim Rome quote, like you're the average of the 5 people we hang out the most with.
Proximity, man.
I'm hanging out with my good people, but insecure people just like me.
Yeah. So that bred insecurity, which bred insecurity, and then so on. Yeah.
So even though we go to a tournament, be like, I think I can win, but maybe. There's always like, it was never like, yes, I can. There's always a little like, maybe not. Right. So when I went to 200 and I start to improve. So there, like the same way that I have like with Fernando, the 6 months of like, improvement, Andre is the same thing. My first 6 months there was just like a jump of level, like
wow,
big time. And because by that point, my teacher wasn't really like teaching anymore. We were just kind of training favor for, like, on some of his friends at school or whatever, until there was the point of, okay, I need to find a place. So in 6 months, I really improved. So when I went to the Worlds in 1997, like I said, it was a year and a half after the first one. So there's a year and a half of growth.
Yeah.
And I had started in 95 doing strength and conditioning. Very few people were doing back then. I just felt like I needed whatever I could extra. No one talked about strength and conditioning in the 90s at all for jiu-jitsu. Like very few individuals. So there's very few specialists. There were jiu-jitsu guys. They're still in the game to this day. And I was one of the first ones to get to work with them. And in 97, it was essentially July. It was a 7 months program just for that tournament.
Wow.
So basically, I was already pre-qualified because I was on the podium the year before. So if you on the podium the year before, it kind of like would qualify for the next. And I felt like, things are getting better. I was starting to win more tournaments. If I'm not winning, I'm in the mix, or being competitive if I'm not, but that's when things start to click. And now it's interesting. Now comes a part of like a little bit of the mental coaching aspect. I mean, like I'm doing mental coaching without knowing that I was doing mental coaching, right?
Yeah.
Just kind of like an instinct thing.
For yourself?
Yeah. I remember that before I go to the tournament, I used to have a list. I think I still have somewhere in my house. But after I compete, I'll put the name of the tournament. Usually opposite. I used to, before I leave, I would put the name of the tournament, the date, and then after, say how many matches I had and if I placed or not. So just kind of like just a paper, just keep like track of stuff. And for some reason this day, I put the name and I put in my bracket the way it landed. I would have 5 matches to win, and I put 5 matches in, and I wrote champion. I never done that before, right? But now that's when it comes that feeling. I remember like yesterday, I'm about to leave the house, and I'm looking at it, and in thinking of the difference of the conviction and the belief. I just had that like, dude, I feel that this last year was not the time whatsoever at all. I had no business in winning that tournament in 96. No business. It would be a completely fluke if it happened, because mentally it wasn't there for that level. And so I wrote it down, and I thought about it, because when we talk about self-confidence, there's different ways to see it. There's a little spectrum that you have, like the low confidence. You have the overconfidence that can be as bad as low, because sometimes people say like, oh yeah, this guy's okay. I trained super hard, but guess what? Maybe you didn't train as hard as you think you did. So you're overconfident. I did everything. Like, did you? Yeah. So, and you have what it's called the optimal confidence, which is right in the middle. You know what I mean? You're focused. You believe you're not underestimating anybody. You just genuinely feel like, dude, I really trained well. I don't think I could have done more than what I did. Right. So getting to that place is not an easy place to be mentally. Let me take it back. For me, for a lot of like high level guys, for them it's normal. Yeah. But for me it wasn't. And so during my first match, in less than a minute, it was trying to pass. I turn all fours and I sit kind of I'm gonna play butterfly. And when I was turning, for some reason my rib just went like pop. Got the little pop, and that was the first time I ever injured my rib. I never exposed anything like that, being exposed to. And back in the day, they didn't really have like a medical time like they have right now. Yeah. So in my mind, I'm just thinking they're gonna try to stop the match, So he just started blitzing the hell out of me. I'm trying to go out of bounds just to kind of like pause and then get back on my feet. So I'm like trying to really force it to go outside. And then when I finally do, and the ref goes in the paddle and kind of start dragging to the middle.
Oh, no.
I'm sitting like a plain butterfly, and every time he moves, I'm like, and he's okay. Like, yeah. And blitz again, and I got probably scored like 3 advantages nonstop. I'm just like back paddling, guard retention, just kind of. And then I remember that I just kind of looked down and I saw there was a bump. I'm like, oh boy. So for the next 2 minutes, I was kind of like in La La Land.
Yeah.
Completely without focus.
Yeah.
Because now I was not in the now. You know what I mean? I was just thinking at the top of the mountain, and I just start climbing, and like how I'm gonna get there if I cannot even move. And back then, you know, my strength was more like the bottom game, so I was trying to play bottom. So anyway, so we have a scramble go out. I remember that I come back, I have a footage of me just kind of putting my hand on my hip and going like this, kind of like thinking that was a kind of regroup time that are like, it is what it is, dude.
Yeah.
Like, it is what it is. And then I accepted to start like kind of playing top. Anyway, so did some long step. He turned. I was able to get his back and choke him. Went to the medics, and then the dude is telling me, like, I think you should stop. So in my mind, like, I'm not only holding tears, but I'm telling myself in the middle of my mental battle, I'm just thinking, like, this is not supposed to end like this. Like, you even wrote this thing down. I never done that. That was, I don't know if you know, for people who are trained jiu-jitsu watching this, if like, what was the first moment in your life that you felt a legit confidence? Not just like, yeah, I'm confident. No, like genuinely like, wow. So for me, again, from starting jiu-jitsu 89, 97, that's the first time I ever like felt that feeling of a conviction. I never experienced that in my life.
Yeah.
So that is actually what gave me strength to keep going. And then my brother was there with me, and he gave me one of the best advice, the perfect advice that I needed at that moment, that I already talked a little bit about. Because he said, like, one match at a time. Because I started looking at the bracket, who's next? You don't even know if you're going to pass the next match.
Yeah.
So after the next, and then reevaluate, can you continue? You know? So basically after that, I only have ugly matches by advantage, negative points, winning. I was doing like, sometimes you're going to win, put in a show. Sometimes you're going to do whatever you got to do to make the, you know, just get the job done.
Grind it out. Yeah.
So that's what, basically what happened. So I was able to kind of push through. So end up working out for me. That end up working out, and I think a good point of view for you to kind of like get from this is like, when you do really put a lot of work in whatever you do in your business, in your sports or whatever, and you have the internal piece that like, dude, I really did everything I could. There's not like that day. No. That is it. Yeah. If someone got the best of it, that's all we can really do. Yeah. So I've never felt, it was interesting because I was like a building to that moment that it was a lot more of like the positive winning the negative. Because there are days that, you know, our negative voice wins. Yep. You know what I mean? And it sucks. You know, but that was the first time I felt like a solid win. I have, you know, many battles internal, but this was, especially for me, it was it's interesting, but there was, the context it was in my life, it was a life-changing experience for me, a tournament. Yeah. You know, but it went so beyond it. And like I said, you know, it's a NCAA title. That's nice. I mean, it's not even like the peak, which is, it's awesome. Yeah. It's awesome. But these kind of experiences just put a stamp that like, you belong. Yeah. You belong here. You earn all this. You put the work. So I felt like that made a huge impact in my life with everything. Like, well, what else can you accomplish? Yeah. You know what I mean? So it's always, I felt like I needed like something to really break through. Yep. And then basically that was a game changing, like, for me. Yeah. You know, so kind of fast forward a little bit. So 98, so I was able to win as a brown belt.
That's what I was going to ask you. Yeah.
And then 99, around the same time, I was a black belt and I was working construction in Vegas.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
So see the progression.
Yeah.
But it's no sad story or anything. It's just like I made that choice. When I was a teenager, my goal wasn't to become a world champion. There's not even a national championship. You know what I mean? Just talking about world championship. You know, I just wanted to make a living with that.
Yeah.
And that was tough as it is, you know, like banging heads with my mom, which is like my biggest supporter. But in her mind, you got to always keep in mind that people have different perceptions of the meaning of the word success.
Yeah.
You know, maybe something success for you is not for me or vice versa. So the perception that my mom had is that when you go to school, you get a degree, you get a job, and you retire, you know, like the whole, that's a type of success. That's okay. But it doesn't mean that I want that for my life.
Right.
So that was a lot of like banging heads that I saw that it wasn't for me. Like I really felt like I needed to do something with jiu-jitsu. So that was a long shot of like, and of course supporting over my mom until like I left and I came to the US, and I knew that I was sacrificing my competition career in a moment that I was kind of like going up and seeing a lot of my friends doing well. But I felt like there was a different moment in my life, and one of the things too that I wasn't looking back, I was very naive and I wasn't ready emotionally for this change. Meaning, a lot of people told me, so like, now that your competition career is finally taking off, you're not gonna have good training partners, which they're right, right? But now I bought that. I didn't reevaluate, just like, oh, I don't have, so kind of pity party, like, oh, I don't have my ear. And so I honestly, I could have done more, but there was the mental space that I was. Yeah. And then with the year in the US, and then my son was born, like, okay, game on. Like, there's like, I'm not thinking of competition. I'm just thinking of like a lot of the priorities change. Yeah. Because of that. And so I stayed in Vegas for close to 2 years, and then I came to Arizona.
What brought you to Arizona?
When I was in Vegas, because the first tournament that I competed, again, back then there's not many tournaments, and then a opportunity presented itself, let's put it this way. In 97, a good friend, now there's a good friend of mine, back then that was being introduced to, his name is Steve Da Silva, it's a black belt. So he was one of John Lewis' best friends. John Lewis was the first jiu-jitsu school in Nevada, in Vegas, basically. Okay. Old school MMA guy, fought in UFC, fought those extreme challenges back in 95. So he goes back a long time. So he was the first school there. So Andre got feel kind of like a training partnership with him, stay with him in corner fights, and then Andre was fighting Japan. He would go in there with us. So they kind of got not a business partnership, but kind of like a little bit of a union that, you know, like, so they went to Brazil to train. And then my friend, so Steve went there in 97 to train, and I was already taking English lessons back then. I got a scholarship to study English. It's English school for like 3 hours per week. Okay. You know, like you do that, like, so I did for 7 years, 14 semesters or whatever. So 3 hours a week. Didn't have a lot of practice, you know, speaking, but at least I'm learning grammar and getting situated. Yep. So my friend Steve, he was there. I saw him at the school, like at the end of a class. And then I started thinking, you know, like, man, I should try. Because at that point, I never tried my English. And I saw him. So I went home debating if I should go talk with him. And then now my negative voice is like, what are you talking about? You're not even speak English. You're going to embarrass yourself in front of everyone. Right. So now I'm like, you know, that big battle. So anyway, the next day, maybe I woke up brave or something. So I said, like, dude, I'm going to try to say hi, because it sucks, man. I mean, if you go to a different country, you don't know anything. People, you know, they're talking, they're laughing, doing whatever. So he was stretching in the corner. So, like, I'm going to go there and try to, like, see if I can communicate. So I said hi, and he opened his eye this big, like, do you speak English? Because no one really spoke back then there. I was like, well, go slow. So we start. So next thing I could understand, and my English was better than what I expected.
Oh, good.
It wasn't great, but I was like,
yeah,
okay, I was in a conversation, I was understanding. Had some people, some of the friends start seeing, and they're like, come here to ask to translate. Dude, I didn't know you know English, or me neither. You know, we just figured it out right now.
Yeah.
And so we became friends, you know, kind of took him out and stuff like that. So he came back in 98 and stayed a few days at my mom's house with me. And then he told me, hey, before the Worlds in 98, he said like, hey, there'll be a tournament in California. And back then, so the Pans, I think, was earlier this year and was in Hawaii.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
For 2 years in a row was in Oahu. And then it said like, hey, I live in Vegas, but, you know, we're going to have a big group going, and you can come stay to my house in Vegas. You ride with us, crash in a hotel, compete, stay there for 10 days. What do you think? So right away, because you got to think about the two options of like, okay, this is like 6 weeks away, and I can say now it's too close, you know, maybe next year, or I'm going.
Yeah.
So when he offered that, what do you think? Like, it was crazy because I imagined myself in a tournament. I didn't even know how the gymnasium would look like, but I imagined myself out in a set, like, I'm going. And he's like, really? I was like, yeah. He said, like, I know there is a problem to have, like, visas here to get in the country. Do you have a visa? Like, no, I don't have the passport or the money, but I'm going.
Wow.
So I put that in my mind. It was, in a way, wasn't good because 2 days before the Worlds, and I'm thinking about this potential trip, you know, this whole time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like with that thing in mind. Long story short, because that would be a story just to get the visa that people don't realize. Just maybe I'll share a little bit so people can have an idea.
Yeah.
So I was able to actually get the visa to travel, you know, so I stay there with them. I end up doing well in the tournament. And then John mentioned to me, like, hey, have you thought about coming to the U.S. and stuff? I'm like, man, I never thought before. And I knew that I wanted to compete, but I never thought about living abroad. I knew that I would leave Rio at some point, maybe to go to another state, but I didn't know. It's just I just had no idea. And then he said, like, hey, I cannot give you a job like here, but, you know, it can help you with the visa, you know, like a sponsoring the visa. And then you get other jobs and stuff like that. I'm like, let's do it. So that's why I end up kind of like when I came to the U.S., I wasn't really like doing much jiu-jitsu in the beginning. There is a quote from Jim Rome that say, work full-time on your living, part-time on your dream, and one day with patience and discipline, you know, you can flip that around, and and your part-time can become a full-time. So to a certain degree, especially entrepreneurs go a lot through this transition that when is the time that hopefully it's going to flip. And so, so when I got in Vegas, I was just working, gardening, painting, construction, you know, not getting paid for jiu-jitsu. I would try to go train twice a week. I was just in like survival mode. Yeah. You know, I sold my car and brought 8 Atama geese with me. Back then, they sold fast. Yeah. And that
was the gi, right? That was the Atama.
Because they're one of the first ones in Brazil. So I knew what the HQ was to buy, you know, just a little lower. Sure. And that was basically my, you know, when I got in US, I came with $2,700. So I thought I was rolling. Right. You know what I mean? I was like, I'm good. I got $2,700. Yeah. You know, and I know people that came with way less than nothing. Yeah. So 27, I'm good compared to a lot of people. And so I went to look for a place to live, and they said, like, wow, you need to have, do you have credit? I was like, what is credit? Right. Like, do you have Social Security? What is Social Security? I don't know anything. Right. You know what I mean? Yeah. Everything is new in the culture. Like, I have no idea. And so, like, well, if you don't have that, you need to put 3 months of deposit. So right there was $2,100. You know what I mean? Yeah. And then same thing, put the electric bill. Like, you need a deposit because you don't have anything. You don't have, And then we had a phone line. I had to put a deposit. My phone money was gone like that. Yeah. You know? And then I sold those AGs and kind of helped me to just kind of breathe and give me time to get a job. And then eventually, 6 weeks later, a situation kind of presented itself that someone was asking John for someone to teach in Henderson, a rec center, for like twice a week. And so he offered me. I was like very little money, but like, dude, like that was my foot on the door to start teaching somewhere.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. And that was kind of like my beginning of teaching in the U.S. And then eventually just kind of going through that spectrum of getting to a point. Only 2005. That's when I officially told myself, from now on to this day on, I only work with what I want, who I want, when I want.
Wow.
That means if not because of money, I have to do a job that at that point, my last job was house cleaning.
Yeah.
So I said, like, there's nothing wrong with house cleaning, but it was for me to get to where I needed to be.
Yeah.
And then it'd be like, okay, I'm not on a point that I don't need to do this anymore. And then, okay, so that was from 99 to 2005.
Wow. And you don't strike me as the type that would spend a lot. I mean, you probably saved a lot of the money that you made, just kind of, putting it aside, or what were you doing?
Yes and no, because at the same time, I'm learning things here. I got in trouble 3 years because tax. I didn't know. No one told me, like, how would you tax?
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, things like that. I'm just trying to, like, navigate through, a lot of things that when you're in a different current. I wish I had saved more. I had, can complain, but I could have done way more. But I'm just trying to figure it out. You know what I mean? When you're like in the early 20s, I'm just trying to figure it out and make a living with jiu-jitsu. And so it's very, very different than what it is right now, right? The scene.
It might as well been, 10 years might as well be 100 years, because 10 years ago, if someone had sponsorships, it was like a gi. Gi sponsor, that's kind of a big deal. Now it's like the guys are being put up in hotels, and they're being flown out to tournaments, and they're, their food's taken care of, and all they have to do is focus on jiu-jitsu, and they're being paid to wear apparel. And that's, I mean, I love where it's going, but I mean, you guys were laying the foundation for that, and it's so crazy to me that a 2-time world champion comes to another country and he's got to build a resume.
Yeah, that's something that I learned right away. Not right away, maybe in a few years, but eventually I start sharing with friends that are coming, like, man, people don't know, like, oh, I'm a world champion. Like, people are being introduced to jiu-jitsu. Do you think they care about IBJJF or whatever? They don't even know what the hell that is. Or tournaments. Exists tournament for jiu-jitsu? They don't know.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So the point is, like, especially, like, still to this day, a lot of people just being introduced. I've heard of jiu-jitsu before. I think I'm going to try. Do you think, oh, he's an IBJJF champion? Come on. They don't know. You know what I mean? They're just going to see, like, hey, is it convenient? Is it by my house? Is it price? Is it, it's in a budget? Does it seem like a clean place? A good culture? That's about it. It doesn't matter, like, you don't have to even ever compete it if that's your choice to have a school. Of course, you can do an incredible job and not being there's many people that barely compete, do a great job. You know what I mean? And that is totally fine. But that was just kind of like a different time back then too. Yeah. And a lot of the mentality back then, it was this like, oh man, I need to compete, I need to win to build my name so I can have my school, So that was the mentality. And now, no, it's absolutely not. And man, one of the things I mentioned about the quotes, it's in your moments of decision that your destiny shape. That decision that Steve asked me, like, do you want to go? And I have 2 directions to go. Yeah. So this is one of the phrases. My second phrase, it's that I heard something along these lines when I was younger, like maybe getting close to my 20s. But if you're looking for a big opportunity, accept a big challenge. So now, if you think about it, if you listen at home and you think about some of the biggest challenge that you ever accepted in your life, I'm not talking, forget about jiu-jitsu. Maybe jiu-jitsu one of them, but forget about jiu-jitsu. A big challenge that because of this challenge, something was created, an opportunity was created. Yeah. Now, our opportunity sometimes it's not necessarily comes with the outcome that you wanted. something happened, but there was such a strong like learning, like life experience that because of that challenge, boom, something changed. Or sometimes this challenge that you accepted generated another opportunity and another challenge. So basically you have the opportunity challenge loop.
Yeah.
That means you got a challenge that leads to opportunity. This opportunity can lead to another challenge. And now we got a good positive loop going of accepting new challenges and more things coming up.
Well, that's where growth happens, right? Yeah.
And that's why that brings me back to the moment of the decision. You know what's crazy? Steve never went back to Brazil. That was the last time he went to Brazil.
Wow.
So if I said no, would I be here?
Who knows, man?
Who knows? You know what I mean? Maybe I would come from different, but not from that way, because that was back when the internet wasn't around. So I wouldn't be in contact with him like, hey, come here. Like, no, not at all. I had to live that experience, because when I saw like, dude, I got to go. Like, I have to experience this. Yeah. You know? So, of course, I was thinking about the outcome of doing well and stuff like that. Of course. Sure. But there was more like I was curious to see, like, you know, what am I going to see? What am I going to learn? Yeah. So I think this is really good for people to think about some of the challenges that you have accepted or even pending that you could be accepting. Yeah. And what kind of opportunity that is going to generate opportunity for learning, opportunity of another challenge. Because in my case, I accept the challenge of coming here. I'm not even saying to compete. Right. The challenge of you getting a visa in Brazil, it's already complicated. You already know how the situation is, the country with immigration and stuff like that. Yeah. It's not always been complicated. There's a number of people that they're going to give the visas or whatever. So my first challenge was that to get a visa, because I try to look at this way. Okay, what is the one day I want to travel abroad? So number one, I need a passport. That's one win. If nothing happens, okay, I got a passport. Yep. And then I'm going to apply for the visa. So when I apply for the visa, if they doesn't work, that sucks. I lose the application, but so be it. But then because I accept that, okay, that gave me the opportunity to come to the U.S. Yeah. So I came here, gave me the opportunity to accept a challenge to compete. I ended up competing, and that day, and I never competed much in open class, but that day I ended up winning the featherweight and the open. Wow. So that was like good, because back then I had good sponsor. They had that was back when magazines were around. Yeah. So they mentioned that. So now I showed that to my sponsor, like, look, oh, wow, you know, they mentioned him, and he mentioned the name of the instructor, the sponsors and stuff like that. So from that, another opportunity presented itself. What do you think about moving here? I'm like, oh, you know, and then so it's another one to accept. Hey, there's a class in, you know, for this rec center, you want to do it. So you just keep accepting. So long story to come back, as you asked me about Arizona, is because the Liley brothers, Todd used to live in Vegas. That was back when he was active fighting MMA. Yeah. And Trevor was just opening in 2000 the Arizona Combat Sports. Wow, okay. So I just came here like August of 2000, and then we did a seminar. That was back when, like, man, there's less than 10 schools in the state. Yeah. I don't think it hit 10 in the whole state. I know Tucson had 3. So we talk about a possibility of starting a new program. Yeah. You know, because they already have the... they did like pancration, MMA, you know, kickboxing. So jiu-jitsu started to become more popular. So it was like, okay, we start the program, and that was it. And again, I was in a moment that I was in Vegas and I wasn't doing well financially. My son was born, and that means like there's month that sometimes I'll get gigs that I'll have exposed to some money, sometimes not. Yeah. So now I'm with the son, and I don't know when I'm going to. 1 month, I'm like, nice, I made $2,000. Next month, I made $600. You know what I mean? So it's like that insecurity with, you know, with a family, and I just felt like I didn't want to stay in Vegas. Right. don't get me wrong, I was surrounded by good people in Vegas. But back then, I knew that eventually I would have my own thing, and I just felt like I didn't want to open a school to compete against John.
Okay.
So
That makes sense.
I just felt like I need to go I didn't know where I was going to go.
Yeah.
Because I did have like sort of opportunity in Vegas, but I said like, man, I can't. And then I started looking around, and it happens, you know, there was a talk of maybe like Georgia, and then one point about possibly Canada. So there's like,
wow.
And then it just happened that it was Arizona. Like, man, I need to get the ball rolling. I need to start somewhere, you know. And then so that was close to 2 years in Vegas.
Yeah.
And then accept that challenge of coming to Arizona and start something new. So everything that would kind of, if you look back in your life, you know, like look how many, you know, like the challenge of doing what you're doing here. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You know how many opportunities this year open up for you in like relationships.
Yeah.
And things, the same thing in podcasts with me, like how many, like even donors I got for like Jiu-Jitsu Tribe, or like mental coaching people, or just whatever, just connection, you know? So, and you're probably making millions of dollars. Right? So
yeah. Ask my wife
about
how much
that. Yeah. So, but the point is, like, man, there's a hell of a challenge that I accept, and it's giving you like the opportunity of growth, learning, and connection. So, it's always good for people to, like, if you're like not sure about certain things, you know, think about like, man, what this challenge? Because I tell you what, I feel like when you have, sometimes you have an idea, maybe this happened with you or not. Maybe you think about like, I'm going to do a podcast, and then you start putting more thought to it, and anxiety start to hit you.
Yeah.
like, what do you think? What are you doing? Who makes you think that you can do a podcast?
Listen,
you know what I mean?
Listen to your voice, Alex. You know what I mean? Yeah. That was tough for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So all that to go through, that like the internal battles to go through. So what is my kind of tip or take away with this? Every time you have an idea, it's not just idea like, oh, I'm going to go to the bar of the weekend. An idea of like accepting sometimes not even that big of a challenge. But if you feel like that anxiety coming up, you're probably on the right track.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean? You're probably up to something. Because if you wasn't, it'd be like,
yeah.
Like, you know, so when you feel like, oh, investigate what is this here? You know, like what is causing this here? You know, and then from there, and that's kind of how I end up here in the United States. You know what I mean? Like
that's a big
feeling
leap.
this year. You know what I mean? That's a massive trigger.
Yeah.
You know, and there's moments that I'd love to tell that every time I felt anxiety, I won, but definitely not, because we're going to have the battles with our internal voices. Sometimes we're going to lose.
Do you have a process to overcome that? Like personally, is there a process that you use?
Well, it's just years of personal development, therapies, retreats, and then just kind of like self-improvement journey. Yeah. You try to work on yourself, and it's a hard one, dude. You know, like if there's something, maybe if some of the younger crowd is listening, one thing that I'd love someone maybe push or expose more to reading earlier. Yeah. Personal development or business stuff, you know what I mean? Yeah. I only got to this probably like 15, 16 years ago. Okay. That I felt like, okay, I'm reading, I'm looking for stuff. I think I did a lot of stuff by like instinct, you know, and a lot of stuff, and fighting my anxieties with instinct. And then I started like books, and then the books start to it's going to raise your awareness. Yeah. But there's so much the book's going to take you. Yeah. Because at one point, be like, yo, you need some professional help. Yeah. And be like, I'm not crazy. I'm like, no. Nobody's crazy. You know what I mean? But there's a reason why. There's therapists and psychologists and can really help. And I felt that those start to be like a game changer on my life, to start to little by little. I'll be 50 this year. I'm 50 and I feel like we don't know anything. Right. Yeah. My mom she would be 78 this year, and I see how much she still grows and she works, and I look at him like, dude, I don't know anything. Yeah. You know, this lady like raised two boys with no child support by herself. Wow. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like, I don't know anything. I'm just trying to understand myself better. And you're gonna leave here without not knowing, a lot. We think we know a lot, but we really don't.
It's very similar to the journey of learning jiu-jitsu, because, I often joke that I wish I lived in the world of the people that do it twice a week. You know what I mean? They're kind of la la land where I do jiu-jitsu. Of course you do. But when you immerse yourself in it, when you're going every day and that's all you do, you just watch film and you study technique and you study the concepts of things. Yeah. You realize the more you learn, the more you realize how little you know.
Oh yeah.
And it's fantastic. That's what I love the most about jiu-jitsu, is that I hate to say it's infinite, but it really kind of is.
Yeah, I like to give the comparison of jiu-jitsu and life. That is, the jiu-jitsu, like life, is the endless, massive puzzle that you will never see the big picture, everything connected, beautiful. And it's the same thing in jiu-jitsu. And I tell some of the white belts too, like, man, you got to understand that this massive image that we kind of, in this analogy, like, you came to a class, I gave you one piece.
Yeah.
And then you're like, what do I do with this here? You know what I mean? And then you learn this here.
Yeah.
And then and then as time goes by, like, oh, this comes here. Like, and then I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
I see a little bit here.
Yeah.
And then I feel like life is the same way. We have a lot of like random pieces as we develop and start putting together, and you look back and see like, wow, like how many times we're just clueless. You just didn't know. And it doesn't have to look, I'm 50, and I'm not saying like something like, well, when I was 20. No, I mean, how many things in your life that maybe 6 months ago you had an opinion about something, and then now you experience something that are like, I'm not down with that belief anymore.
100%.
I switch. I'm now I think like this.
Yep.
So imagine now, how old are you now?
I'm 51. I'll be 52 in October.
Yeah. So 50 years of like just accumulating stuff, and then we're seeing moments that will just go like, fully naive or whatever, and there's times that giving credit to yourself to the moment that, it was instinct. I didn't know what the hell I was doing, but I threw myself out there, and that is the important thing too. It's throw yourself out there.
Yeah.
Like, I remember I did one of the programs that I did called Inner Discovery for Outer Success. When I was putting this together, it was it's not just about jiu-jitsu, but it's like jiu-jitsu and life. I kind of put in both. And I remember that something came into my mind about, I don't know if I was flipping channels. I don't remember, but what is the name of the movie Tom Hanks when he had the ball? He's at the beach. You know what I'm talking about?
Castaway.
Castaway.
Yeah.
Yes. So I remember that, like, how I put that in a program, because it was like, I saw like a great analogy on that movie, saying like, because sometimes you're in let's say I was in Brazil and I'm trying to make stuff happen in jiu-jitsu. I'm in this island and I'm putting help. Anyone, I am here, help me. And then suddenly, the guy Steve shows up in my life with a boat. Yo, dude, do you want to try? Like, no, I'm waiting for another one, but thank you. Help. Yeah. You know what I mean? And then you don't take it. So be like, not always you're going to have those, nice rides. So even when he started building his own like thing and then start to kind of put against water, and saying like, man, when you jump and you go that far out of your comfort zone and you try to build your little boat or whatever to get out of that island, because you realize no one's coming for you. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. If you start, like, you got your little boat, you went through all the madness, you break through the waves, things going to come down, and then you're going to have better chance of finding. That's what happened. He found me, basically like in the middle of like, just kind of putting myself out there. Yeah. And then it'd be like, yo, do you want to ride? Like, sure. You know what I mean? But now the problem is to breaking that is people waiting for the help. The help is not coming. And then you realize like, yo, you have some rough swimming to do, and it's not going to be pretty.
Yeah.
You know, you're probably going to go one, going to come back up. It's going to be tough. And I'm not even talking about anything in jiu-jitsu. This is like straight up like
straight life. Yeah.
Life, you know, like I was very fortunate that I went to college and I live like at home with my mom. I wanted to try to live by myself, and she's like, Gustavo, it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
Like, because in Brazil, you're not going to make any money. You're going to live in a favela.
Wow.
Like, because you can like go through the college when you finish to do your thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I'm so lucky that I had the opportunity to do that. I went to college for free for 4 years, so which was pretty nice.
Yeah.
So she didn't have to worry about that, you know. But I had to go through those, you know, the storms in water to be able to things, you know, to calm down. So I feel like a lot of people who, like, again, like, it's a quick example would be just your podcast that, you know, like, I want to do a podcast, but who's going to help me to do? I asked you, like, who gave, you know, how did you get this here? You're like, YouTube. You know what I mean? You jump into
a lot of it.
The YouTube, like, pool, and then we start digging stuff, and then trying to figure it out. You putting yourself out there. Yeah. You know, and this is for, like, that initial jump, dude. It's scary.
It is.
You know, just the fear of the unknown. But I feel like now, like, for example, in Arizona, I know they have people from everywhere watching, but like especially Arizona. Do you know that there are over 150 schools in the state?
I didn't know there was that many.
Yeah. Whoa. Between 150 and 160.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
And if you look into other states, I'll have to say Arizona is up there with, I cannot say for sure for all other places, like California, Florida, you know, like, place that especially a lot of Brazilians based early, you know. But Arizona, it's a big one, man. Yeah. It's definitely a big one.
Yeah, I spent a lot of time, and I never call it wasted time because it's all trial and error, you know, you're learning. And I don't focus on, I hate to say it, I don't focus on the outcome, I focus on the process. Like, who am I becoming by doing this, right? And you know, I was like, well, what if I got this person on the show, and then I could get that person on the show, and then say, you know, and I'm thinking like, everybody like outside of my my sphere, right? Everybody outside. And then I'm at one of the tournaments last year. I'm standing there and I'm like, huh, that guy's pretty interesting. There's a black belt over there. There's a black belt over there. Gustavo Dantas is 10 feet from me. I could talk to him. You know what I mean? There's so many great stories right here in Arizona. And I'm like, why don't I just start here? And then we can expand from here, right? So I think I don't, and don't get me wrong, I reach out to everybody, anybody that's, you know, across the country or around the world that's interesting. I want to talk to them. But there's so many great stories here. I mean, all the lives that have been affected by jiu-jitsu in a positive way, there's plenty of stories here too. Oh, yeah. Yeah. So I love it. I absolutely love it here.
Yeah. Especially for, people like, cause my podcast, I start talking a lot about entrepreneurship, you know, personal development, talk with athletes, but try to understand some of the patterns of some of the, especially, we have a lot of entrepreneurs in jiu-jitsu, but not necessarily, you know, just entrepreneurs in general that using how jiu-jitsu is helping you through the journey or not. Yeah. But having that moment that you like jiu-jitsu, then you love, and then you start thinking like, dude, what if I open up a school? So it's a lot more complicated than it looks. You know what I mean? For some people, for you to be like, become profitable, to be able to, like, if you have employees, to pay employees, do you pay everything you got to do, help people, and you still get compensated for it. Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's not an easy task.
It's difficult.
I mean? So having that jump into, like, there's many people in Arizona that had regular jobs and then quit and be like, dude, I'm going all in, and boom, what they're doing. Yeah. You know what I mean? And
that's what I did.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I set a date and everything was focused on that date. And then when the date came, I kept my word to myself and made the jump.
Well, do you feel that you always had like an entrepreneurial bug though?
I did. So my dad was a serial entrepreneur. I mean, that meant we moved a lot because we lost our house. But before he and my mom split up, it was very much like My dad was always making moves one way or another, and he kind of settled into import and export because we're on a border town, so he did a lot of that. But I always had that in me. Like, I joined the military to get out of a bad situation, right? I was just going on the wrong path. And then that led me to, I'm going to get out, but I don't know what the hell I'm going to do. So I got a job. And then I tell people a mistake I made early on in my 20s is I got really good at a job I really don't like, but if it was feeding my family, it was, one of those things. It's, you have responsibilities. But I always had that, I want to have my own thing. I want to run my own business. And then, but number one, the negative voices in my head. Number two, when I left home, it was to basically reinvent myself, right? Because I was just going down the wrong path. So I reinvented myself, which is great, except that you lose who you are in some ways when you reinvent yourself, right? So I immersed myself in a different culture and a different thing. So Dana White put it really well, and it kind of resonates with me. He says, first of all, figure out who you are. Second, figure out what you want to do. And third, pursue it relentlessly. And so by the time it was really during the time I found jiu-jitsu that it peeled me open and showed me who I was. And I love that person, right? So that's when I started that journey of really, really dedicating myself to it. And this was going to be my path.
And an interesting thing that you said too of like knowing what you want. And many people might be listening to this regardless of your age, maybe saying like, dude, I don't know what I want. And it's like, fair enough.
Yeah.
Starting with what you don't want.
Oh, I love that. Yeah.
I do not want to eliminated that one. That one's out of the table.
Yeah.
Because if not, you're going to end up, like I said, it's just, on a side. And it's very important to you, man. I think know your strengths because I remember listening to Gary Vaynerchuk.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Yeah. So I got some good, like pieces of like wisdom that he talks some stuff. So he talked one that is super interesting. That is, so there's two types. You can have like an entrepreneurial DNA or entrepreneurial tendencies. They're different.
Yeah. Yeah.
As from the name, entrepreneurial DNA is just people are wired that way and they just don't know.
Yeah.
They know that, like if they do another job, but they know that is in the DNA that are like, they're going to open a business. They're going to fail, break down. They're going to open another one.
Yep.
If it breaks, they're going to open another one.
Yep.
You know what I mean? It's just how they're wired. And tendencies sometimes can be like, oh, it would be cool to have my own freedom to do whatever.
Yeah.
So that's okay. But there's one point in time, like if it doesn't work, I just can't always go back to, and that's okay. But now it's very different than like, I'm in.
Yeah.
And that's it.
That's it.
That's it. I'm going until like there's no other way and I'll try something else. So it's very interesting because a lot of people that want to be, and that is true, the same way that I'm not suited for like to be in an office, like sitting, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Right.
And then for many professions people like, and that's okay, but I know that is not a strength. It would be painful for me. So at least I know that. And at the same time, there's some people that not necessarily are like, do you think you really want to run a business? I mean, so there's some people just, it's not.
Yeah.
And then maybe the business can possibly survive, and thriving. So there's a big difference too. You know, that a lot of schools is just going to coast to, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Right.
At all. You have another gig and do this here.
Right.
But to be able to be 100% in with all you want to do, yeah, dude, there'll be a lot of like tough decisions.
Yeah.
And just facing a lot of the unknown fear. So that is a tough one. So I always give a lot of credit to everyone, like the same way you open a school. Someone just like that. And you know what's another one that it's cool from Gary V, that people asking like, hey, when is the time? When is the time that you want, just the leap? When is the moment?
Yeah.
And then I love that he said that like the moment, when you feel suffocated, that you can't breathe anymore, you reach that boiling point that if you don't, you're going to get sick.
That's it.
Just from like, not doing what you want.
Yeah.
So, and the same thing at Jim Rohn, he said, like, when you get to that day, I was listening to him earlier today as a guy that he passed maybe like over 10 years ago.
Yeah.
But he goes like, the day that you just say like, I had it, like, that's it. No, that's it. So that is a very tough decision because, something's got to give, and the difficult time, the difficult thing, and my mom is a very wise person. I picked up a lot of stuff from her, and when I was with her the last time, I was mentioning how one of the biggest lessons that I got from her, watching her life, what she did with us, that sometimes in life you have to take a couple steps back in order to move forward.
Of course, yeah.
Because sometimes you're just dragging that extra baggage and you going and you're like, man, it just doesn't feel like I'm going anywhere. And like, yo, reset.
Yep.
Boom, few steps back in order to do that. And it's tough. And it's tough for everyone. It's tough on our ego and it's tough on our self-esteem. You feel like you're failing in a way, you know, that you have to like take a few steps back,
yep.
So I think that's something for people to always take in consideration,
Yeah, and to almost like give yourself a little break. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You're gonna make mistakes. Don't be so hard on yourself.
Easier said than done.
Easier said than done. Yeah, I'm really tough on myself. But yeah, even as a kid, like I remember, we would go. We lived on a border town, so my mom would
what
take.
State is that?
It's in Texas,
Okay.
So Brownsville, Texas. My mom would take me to Mexico, and we buy all of these like Mexican candies and stuff like that. And I remember we had this. It was like an old cable spool that was in our yard, and I wheeled that thing in the front, and I'd lay it on its side, and I'd put the candies out, and I'd sell them. I'd just sit there and sell them. And my brothers, I got two older brothers. Them and their friends would come by, and one would distract me while the other one's ripping me off, and I'm like, hey, and then I'd chase him, so they start taking candies over here. But I was always doing stuff like that,
And this is also this is the third time I mentioned Gary Vee, just because one thing he said, like, it's important for you to notice on your kids, like, what kind of patterns you're seeing here. Like, just the pattern of you getting an attitude. That's something that my mom tells me. I don't remember. I was like 4 years old, 4 or 5. But we live in a house at one point that have like a lime tree or whatever. So they're like fall on the ground. And then I start to like pick them up and then saying that put in a box and I was going to sell in front of the house. You know what I mean? So like, I don't remember. She loves telling the story. But the point is, someone has a little bit of the entrepreneurial DNA there. You know what I mean? Just to have an idea to like negotiate
understanding
or do
that,
something, you know what I mean?
Yep.
And not everyone has, and that's totally fine.
Right.
But I felt like maybe when I was, I think 12, again, there's like moments in our lives that are like some specific traumas that we have that can hold us back, can push us forward depending on what context. And mine was when I was about somewhere 10 or 12. My mom was in a relationship for like 7 years with this crazy dude, right? Crazy, I'm talking about putting a gun in her face, that type of like crazy. Yeah. Right. So there was a kind of like, domestic violence. So that was like for me was like a trauma, because it's just later on I went to see how much this impacted my life. Yeah. Because when you're a kid or like, you just don't realize. Yeah. But I remember that I couldn't do anything. It felt like I was always grounded. I couldn't do anything. I couldn't turn on the TV. It's like I'm talking crazy thing that, like they leave and then come back. He would come into my room and put his hand behind the TV to make sure that, the TV wasn't warm because I wasn't watching. You know what I mean? Like psycho stuff like that. Yeah. And I feel like everyone, if you're listening, you don't know like what are your main values. Everyone needs to pick and choose whatever are your main. And I just felt like over the years, I figured out early that was my freedom of choice. And I just felt like I didn't know what I was going to do because I was before jiu-jitsu, but I just know that I don't want people telling me what to do. Yeah. Because I was in that environment, like I cannot do this, and I'm grounded. What did I do? So always that thing, and it just really kind of built me in a way that I'm going to find a way to do my own thing. Yeah. It took a little bit, I have to do things that you usually, you don't like necessarily, jobs that, maybe we would rather not have.
Yeah.
But just, and in my case, was the freedom of choice. Whatever your values are that you choose, your job is to live in congruence with them. That's it.
Yeah.
There's not right or wrong. It's just whatever, that is it. So with me, it was the freedom of choice to be able. So I feel like entrepreneurship, which is not a easy thing. You consistently try to make things happen.
Yeah.
But I felt like for me, it was a moment that I think it's just solidify like what I was going to be in a way, as far as like I need to do my own thing.
No, that's great. That's great. And especially like, well, it also helps that you made that commitment at an early age.
Yeah.
And you kind of grew into that person. You know what I mean? And it sounds like you had decent mentors around you, along the way. But I think finding out who you are is the hardest part.
For sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I feel like I said, we're going to leave without fully, getting that massive picture.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, do you know who Chaz Palminteri is? He made a movie called The Bronx Tale. He played like gangster. He was the gangster guy. And, he says, and it really struck me because I didn't strike out on my own until I was 48. So it's a little bit later. But he says, it doesn't matter your age. Every day is an opportunity. You can take an opportunity every day. And he's not saying quit your job and jump into something crazy, right? But he's saying every day is an opportunity to explore that, right?
Yeah.
Explore what your possibility. I really believe that we're all made to do something, right? You just got to figure that piece out. And it starts with knowing who you are and understanding what you want to do and then pursue it relentlessly. So,
yeah. An interesting thing that kind of leads a little bit to the kind of tournaments, promoting tournaments and whatnot. Since I was young, I like organizing stuff, type of like competition, organize some games, like I organized my first tournament in 98 in Brazil. So I always liked the idea of like the organization, and I got really into, because we're talking about sponsors, so I started to, I wanted to compete more. So my mom, she did what she could. Yeah. For me, as far as supporting me. And back then, there's not much traveling and stuff like that. It's not like I'll go. Everything was fairly local, and especially the main competitions being in Rio, anyways. It would be like bad if I was in a different state, but like being Rio, but still, couldn't really afford like all the entry fees and whatever. And then I want to compete more, and then my mom would say like, well, I can, this one. I'm like, okay, no problem. And then I start thinking, like, man, I need to start looking for sponsors. Yeah. Now here's the problem. I'm not very good at blue belt that didn't win anything trying to get sponsored. Right. So that's kind of an issue, kind of an issue though. Because everything that goes around that, even though you don't have to be, of course it helps if you already have the resume, but if you don't, do the best you can with what you have. And then I got very lucky that as far as this side, my brother was my mentor he went to college early, almost when he was about to turn 18 for like marketing. And, and then went to grad school. So by 22, he was already done with that. And so he always taught me, because he got involved with sports too. He does triathlon. And so he starts guiding me and said, like, I want to look for sponsors. And then he said, like, well, number one, if you're going to ask someone for money, you better give them a really good reason why. Meaning you can just like, you want to sponsor me? Like, where is your proposal? What is in for me, for my company, that I'm doing this for you? Am I just I'm just helping you out? Right. Or you like, we're working here, I'm trying to, you're trying to promote my brand. Yeah. So since the beginning, I have actually, for people who have interest in my YouTube channel, I have 2 videos about how to get sponsors. Oh, nice. Both are like 20 minutes each one. Okay. Like things that, I went through. And then it's very different, man. Someone come in and say like, hey, do you want to sponsor me? Like, who are you? And then someone come with a proposal. And I'm like, oh, okay. Yeah. This is who I am. This is what jiu-jitsu. If I don't know what jiu-jitsu is, this is what jiu-jitsu is. This is what I currently need. This is what I can give to you, and this is the value that I give. So you need to give an explanation why you even try. And even though doing that, it's really tough.
Yeah.
It's going to be very tough.
Yeah.
And most people, I don't know how it is right now, I haven't followed much, but most people, sometimes I'll receive messages or people send like, hey, you're sponsoring people. Like, dude, you can't just go in and like, you want to,
Yeah.
You need to be a lot more, have a lot more professional approach.
Yeah.
So I started when I won my first tournament that I won. It was a judo tournament. Then I won my jiu-jitsu tournament. So when I won, I had my little portfolio and stuff, and I have like one tournament that I won, my judo tournament, like first place.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, nice, I have two things. So because again, it's not looking good. So when I was a blue belt, I spent probably between 2 and 3 years with just taking no's, like not even close.
Yeah.
For nothing, but just kind of being prepared, always looking for, I'll go to tournaments and I'll look around like, hey, who are the sponsors? Who are the banners? Sometimes they start having like small little local shows that they'll cover some of the tournaments, and I'll watch the show and I'll watch the commercials. Who are sponsoring while this being displayed?
Yeah.
Because it was such a small local place, most likely people were at least aware of jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
So I try to be a little more strategic, because for me to just walk in a place like, hey, you want to sponsor me? I go, what?
Yeah.
What are you talking about, kid? You know, so I had a lot of like, wouldn't even let me finish, right? So, but I start looking for those like little spots, and that's how kind of like, and start asking. And that's one of the things that I talk about in this video too. And Jim Rome, he talks about it like, number one, ask with faith and purpose. Faith that you deserve what you ask for, not just like, you're doing me a favor.
Mm-hmm.
Is it okay? No, you know, faith that you deserve what you're going. And you have to be like resilient with that, because you're gonna take a lot of no's. It's gonna happen. So the first sponsor that I was actually able to get, that was a little bit before the World's 96. So that was the end of 95. So I was already taking no for like quite some time, and then I started having better results. So that was kind of like, it was okay, but still couldn't find anything. And then I started and that's important, they start asking friends or people like, hey, do you know anyone in your family, friends that owns a business? They would be interested in sponsoring someone. So be always asking. And eventually I had one person that said like, dude, my dad owns a drugstore chain. And then I said like, can you get me a meeting with him? He had like 7 locations. It was kind of like a fairly big deal, you know, like for the neighborhood in the area that I was at. And it said, no problem. So I made a proposal, and I talked with my brother. My brother said, ask for a minimum wage salary. So basically like I'm working 40 hours a week.
Wow.
Here. That would be the value of the sponsorship, because it said like, same thing, jiu-jitsu sponsors, they're not going to give you that. Period.
No.
For you to get a salary, come on. You need to be somebody. Yeah. You know what I mean? To have a monthly decent salary, not just like, oh, I make $200. No, actually you're paying part of your bills with that. Yeah. And so I put that, and it was cool because it was getting closer. That was a good exchange. Hey, it's going to take place the first World Championship. We'll put a patch here, So we have like a proposal given how it's going to look.
Smart.
You know what I mean? So all that stuff. And then it said like, how much it's going to cost? And it said like, on a minimum wage, a 1-year agreement. The guy's like, okay. And I'm sitting right there like, okay. Like, I was like, so I scored my first sponsorship, you know, with a full salary, being a purple belt.
That's
which
great.
is not, again, I have zero chance in a jiu-jitsu brand at all. So now is to find those connections, like, can you get me to talk with someone? Maybe they will connect with the message of what I'm trying to do. They resonate and be like, you know what? I'm going to help these guys. Because let's be honest. Yeah, I had 3 patches here and back. someone that they not even know what brand is that. They look like, oh, that kid right there is wearing that. I'm going to go to the store because the guy, most people don't even know.
Right.
You know what I mean? I'll try to promote the best way I could. But and then I stayed for a year. And after a year, I lost the sponsorship. They wanted to do other things or whatever. And that's one of the things, too. Sponsors are not forever.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, you try to get the relationship to work as much as you can, because if sooner one person is giving you this here and you give in here, it's just a matter of time. Yeah. It's going to split.
Yep.
You know?
Yep.
And so when I lost this sponsor, I started to kind of look how, and that comes back a little bit with the looking for a big opportunity, accept a big challenge. Back then, before internet, they started having jiu-jitsu magazines in Brazil. So that was super cool because that was the only source that you have for anything. So every month, it was super excited to get the new magazine, you know, and hopefully you have a picture of you in a magazine. So that always like a big thing when you see, like, even if it's like, my name is here, I'm like, yay!
Yeah.
You know? So the excitement just to be mentioned. If you have a picture, you know, like,
oh, that's big.
Even better.
Yeah.
So I would go through the whole magazine. I will read the whole thing fast because everyone just gets so excited. Like, this is the only thing you can consume. But I would look every page, anyone that is announcing, I'll look every competition they're covering around Brazil. I'll look at everyone's gi and everyone's patch on their gi. Everyone, to notice, what is this logo? What company is this? Everyone. And then I was watching, I was reading, I was towards the end of the magazine. It's just a second, this small like this. And there's a picture of some dude. It was a standout of the tournament. It was just like somewhere in the northeast of Brazil or something. And I think the guy was even a brown belt. And then I see a logo of a drugstore that is big in Rio. And then I'm like, wait. Like, if this dude can be sponsored, why can't I?
Yeah.
You know, like, now I need to know how the hell I'm going to get to this. Now, at least I know that someone knows about the existence of jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
And we're talking about mid-90s. You know what I mean? Not like now.
Mm-hmm.
And in Brazil, even though a lot of people didn't know. So now one of the things that I think it's important too, it's like, people can use any way that you want. They're just throwing out the universe. Or if you're religious, that's the approach that you want to use. Or whatever. The more you start taking action towards something, there's a really good chance that it's moving, dude. Yeah. Things are moving. You're making moves. There's a really good chance sometimes out of nowhere, something popped up. You're like, oh, I wasn't expecting. Like, well, you've been making moves. You're not just sitting, I want a sponsor. Yeah. And I'm sitting right here waiting. You're reaching out. I'm taking notes. I'm just kind of going. And then 3 weeks after this, I saw this picture and it stayed in my mind. One of my ex-wives, and back then she was my girlfriend, her best friend, her boyfriend, he was a delivery boy at one of the locations. And they had like a bunch in Rio. They had throughout Brazil. Yeah. And then I saw him. So we saw each other. So like, hey, can you ask your manager if they have like a marketing department? You know, if there's something, you know, I'm trying to look for sponsorship or whatever. And it's like, yeah, no problem. And then a few weeks go by, and then my ex was talking to her friend on the phone, and like, hey, you're talking with her? Ask if his name was Fabio. Ask if Fabio was there. And then he comes in like, hey, we're able to talk to someone. And so like, oh, he said there's nothing, you know, there's nothing like that. I was like, no. Dude, it has to be. I saw someone wearing. So please, can you just ask him again and say like, hey, is there a number to call? Anything that I can call, you know? And I'm like, okay, I asked him again. And then he finally hits me back and say like, yo, he didn't give me a number, but he gave me the location of the headquarters of the company in Rio. And that was like 10 minutes from where I lived.
Oh, perfect.
You know? So like the same day I had always, you know, the proposal saved. And then I would just, my brother always said, like, you have the kind of like the body part, but you have a little more specific to whoever you're talking with, you know, so it's not a general, just like send, copy, paste and send. You need to give a little twist to like what, in this case, I'm not asking for a big company, just pay my instruction. No, for my entry fees. I'm looking for a salary.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I got there, big, like a house with those kind of security open, like the gate like this.
Yeah.
And then the security open, didn't even give him time to maybe talk much, like, hey, I'm here. Forgot the dude's name was the manager of the certain branch. I'm an athlete. He told me to come here, and it's about sponsorship and stuff like that. They gave me the address, and the dude just let me in. I was like, okay.
Nice.
So go in, talk with the lady that is working the front desk. So not giving, same thing, not giving any time for her to breathe. I'm just spitting everything, and then start saying like, well, so I'm an athlete, so I have my portfolio. And then she goes, it's interesting because I know the company is looking to sponsor someone from like different sports, like they call it, or extreme sport or something different. So they said, there's a guy with a hang gliding guy, there's a motocross guy, and said, and there's you. And it's like, that's my proposal right here, So yeah. I just gave to her. And a couple of days later, she called me like, they picked you. So not pick me because I'm like the best, because I was the cheapest one, because you're going to sponsor like a motorcycle dude.
Yeah. That's
hand gliding.
Yeah.
Like you paying extra, you flying everywhere. It's an expensive sport.
It is.
But imagine a motorcycle. So they saw this dude is just asking for, a minimum wage salary. Like, yeah, that's our guy.
Done.
Yeah. So from there, I really worked on little things that people out there, you want to get your name out, especially, and that was before internet, dude. I had to really create the content, and that thanks to my brother too. And then he said like, all right, this is the deal. We have a lot of like local paper, sometimes like Tempe paper, doesn't matter.
Right.
Gilbert, some type of like local communities. And he said, because he worked with them, like at the end of the month, they always looking for articles to fill up space. So if you send them the article ready, you have a better chance of being published, So start asking for if you know someone. So I start on the mission asking, do you know anyone? Do you know anyone? And then someone like, well, my aunt works somewhere that, is a newspaper. So my brother, so he's a writer actually. So he writes the article. I go to a place to take a picture, professional picture. Like you need to take a professional picture with the hat of the sponsor that it just did. So by that point, I had like, I think I had 2 sponsors at that point, and then sent to them. So I sent to the guy called back, and then he asked me like, who wrote this article? And I thought, oh man, am I in trouble? You know what I mean? Like, and I said like, my brother, and he's like, this is perfect. This is ready to go. I mean, that's what he worked with.
Yeah.
So it came out like a page like this big, or like a full page just about my story, that I grew up in the neighborhood, and thanking my sponsors. He put every key point that you want to put. He was able to add there. So what is the point? To show that I came out on the newspaper? No. It's to show them to like, yo, I don't care. It's a paper. That's all, if it was nowadays, this website featured me. No, I couldn't do that.
Yeah.
So my second month I went there, they put in a glass, they put in a wall. So that was a big thing, because now they can tell to their business partners, like they're like, what is it? Oh, we sponsor an athlete. Oh, that's cool. They do that for the community. You know what I mean? So now one little thing. So I was always fighting to get, my name, like just to show a little bit.
Yeah.
So getting those sponsors, even though I didn't have money to go to the US, to compete, all of them, because since I had 2 of them, I had salaries. So I had 2 full salaries, and I never asked anything to them, because they were like, dude, if, can you pay this here too? Like, dude, I'm not allowed to ask for anything.
Yeah.
And I had one that is just food. So when I had the proposal for the ticket, one said like, I can give you $200. I can give you $300. So next thing, I was able to raise the money for the guys. They'd be like, hey, I've been trying to put the work, you know what I mean? To have that reciprocity, to be like, let's support this guy.
Yep.
What is the message here? If you are a sponsored athlete and you think because just to have a patch in your gi, you're already doing your job, you are wrong, my friend.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
you're wrong. If you look in this as a relationship, a business relationship, and you just like, oh, I just have the patch. No. Especially now with social media, you can really go far out of your way.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? To try to get especially if you are a competitor trying to make it.
Well, what's a decent return on your money? 10%, 15%? I don't know, 20%? If someone is giving you $10 and you give back $13 in value, you're probably going to keep that sponsor.
Yeah.
Right?
Classic example. At one point, I was so I had these 2 sponsors. There was a salary, and then I heard, dude, I hear anything about sponsor, like sponsor, you know, like
of course,
I would go in, and then my friend told him like, yo, there's this new like a juice bar, kind of like acai sandwich, is really good. By my house, I had 2 locations, one next to close to 200, one by my house, and I said like, man, the guy doesn't really know what's going on. He's sponsoring a bunch of people that I not even see them in tournaments. So this friend of mine, he was really good with his marketing. And he said, like, so he knew how it worked. So, like, I think you should go there to this other location. On the same day, same thing. Go to my computer, make the adjustment. All I want is eat for free there. You know, it's not all I want. I'm eating for free.
Right. Yeah.
Every day. That's a big deal.
Yeah.
And I go there. He had in his roster over 20 people. He was like, oh, yeah, this people eating for free, by the way, okay? And I was like, man, this guy has no idea what he's doing. He's sponsoring guys that they're not active competitors. They're taking advantage. They're competing. They don't put in the patch. They're not doing anything. Long story short, in 3 months, he cut everyone but me, my friend, and another dude.
Wow.
3 guys. The only guys that are actually giving back. What is giving back on that sense? Because it's not about just me having the patch. There was cool that one of the tournaments I was in a podium, came in a magazine, I had his hat. Cool, okay.
Yeah.
But what about the like really the return? What kind of return? So I was already teaching. So once a week, I was walking distance from where I used to teach, and I tell some of my students like, "Hey, let's go eat some acai there." And they always tease me like, "Dude, you get your food for free. You have to pay." like man, you know, like they support me. You know what I mean? And so the least you can do, you know, you guys like to see me competing or whatever, but they're part of this.
Yeah.
So I'll go there walking with 7-8 people that are paying. You know, the dude is hugging me and like, that's my guy. Yeah, I mean, I'm bringing business to the guy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And everyone that didn't, it was like, he's giving and someone is here. They're giving. At one point, I don't care what kind of relationship that is, like, all right.
Gotta part ways.
It's time to go.
Yeah.
So for anyone really committed when I say sponsor in my case was like, I really need it. Otherwise, I wasn't going to be able to do what I wanted.
Yeah.
If I didn't really go so far out of my comfort zone to get, you know, like that first trip was not going to happen.
Yeah.
So that means my process I got my whole trip paid for, and I came back with change, you know, and that would not happen if I didn't put myself out and took all those no's for about close to 5 years. You know what I mean? Of like building to get to a moment that I like, wow, I'm traveling internationally.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And for people who don't know, again, moment of gratitude that especially if you live in the United States and you want to compete here, like you said, you just drive, you can fly.
Yeah.
But like when I went to apply for the visa, people in the embassy, I don't know how it is right now, but they were really rude. So Americans who live there, they speak Portuguese. Again, I'm talking about my experience of 25 years ago. I don't know how it is right now.
Right.
It's just the time that I was living, I used to listen to that. And that's a lot of the times you hear people say like, oh man, those Americans are so cocky. You don't know any American. The only one who have an interaction, they treat you like crap. You're going to be like, dude, what's up with this Americans?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They're going to generalize everything. So people be like, yeah, you know, F the Americans or whatever. You know, just because of someone, the way that's the only experience that they had with another person. So I go there. They say like, man, you got to be prepared because they're going to ask you a bunch of questions and stuff. And I was pretty like relaxed. It's not like I was coming here to move here. I was just coming here for a competition. So I took all my documents with me because I knew they were going to ask. So like, what are you going to do there? Like, well, I'm a jiu-jitsu competitor and I'm going to be in a tournament. Like, do you have any proof? And I said like, yeah. So I showed the facts of the competition. But people don't know what facts is. But yeah, so I had to print the facts of the competition to show that this is the information, you know, and all the stuff. And then so like, I go to college and like, do you have, can you prove? And then I show that, and then do you work? And I said, show yes and show proof. So it just felt like he just kept asking stuff, like he was looking for something.
Yeah.
Everything that I say said like, do you have any proof? Do you have any proof? He just kept asking. And then comes like, finally, he gets one and say, who's going to pay for your trip? And then I said, my sponsors. And said, who is your sponsor? So like, well, actually I have a few. So I have my portfolio. So I just show him to like, you know, oh, this year, like showing the logos. Oh, this year, like they paying a little bit, you know. And then the dude just started raising his voice, like, who is paying for the ticket? Like that. That's the kind of vibe, like, you know what I mean? Like,
that's not cool.
Yeah. So start getting like louder, right? So I'm starting to get triggered, you know what I mean? And then the City Farmer, the last drugstore, they're the one they're going to give the most. So they give me $500, right? So I just said, I got to say someone. So they give me the most. I said, City Farmer. And he goes like, do you have a letter from City Farmer stating that you're going to pay for the ticket? And I was like, oh, no, I can't. I need a letter stating that they're going to pay for the ticket. And I'm like, you've got to be kidding me, dude.
Yeah.
So I go back to the place. And then I told him, I'm like, hey, you know, they asked me for a letter, and then they go like, well, but we're not going to pay for the whole thing. I was like, and I was like straightforward with them, like, hey, listen to this. You guys been sponsoring me for 1.5 years already, right? We have a great relationship. Do you really think that I would throw all this away, that you guys give me a letter that I'll come back and say that you're going to pay? I was like, I tell you more. If you tell me right now that you're not going to give me anything, zero, I already put in my head, I'm going. I'm going to put in my mom's credit card, and I'm going to finance this in 12 payments. Yeah. So I'm going to do it. Now, can you help me with a letter or not? You guys, if you want, you don't give me anything whatsoever. But now, if I don't get this specific letter, I cannot go.
Wow.
So now this is 2 weeks to the tournament. I'm still trying to figure out how I'm going to get into the U.S.
Holy shit.
So
dude.
Finally took like 5 days, and then they said like, okay, they said yes. So they're gonna give me the letter. So I went back to the letter, you know, like
the embassy.
Yeah, to go back there, and kind of crazy and wild story. I don't know if I share it in podcast or not. I don't remember, but I had the money for the ticket, but it's not just a ticket. We're going internationally, you know what I mean? Like, you're going to eat, you know, you're going to do stuff. And I was like, this is very close. It's very tough to find, like, sponsorship right now. Yeah. I've been developing a relationship with them for quite some time for them to come. So I start to, like, just start thinking, man, what am I going to do? So, again, start asking, and I was, like, close to local, like, regional, like, elections and stuff. And that's the time the politicians want to love helping everyone, the athletes, you know what I mean?
No kidding.
You know, all that stuff, because they want, like, oh, you're supporting the community, of course, and all that stuff. So I start asking, like, is there anyone from our city, from our neighborhood that is running for a position? And I start asking, and suddenly someone like, yes, there's this guy. So, like, where is it? No, it's my house. So boom, walk there. It's closed. Then I go get the number, call the lady, answer, and I just don't give time for her to breathe. And then just start, like, explaining, like, hey, I'm born and raised in a community. You know, I teach classes here. You know, I go to college. So I start kind of selling that, like, I'm representing the neighborhood, the city in the, in the competition, which is not. They're like, I'm the international, I'm representing Brazil in the community. It's, come on, it's just a tournament. Yeah. But I'm selling like it's a really big deal. Yeah. And she goes like, I like your attitude. So, like, call me here tomorrow at 11. The guy, Ari, is going to be here, and then you talk with him. So the guy answered the phone. So I call the next day. He answered the phone, and then he goes like, good morning, champ. I was like, I got something. I don't know what, but I think I got something.
Yeah.
So I didn't tell him that I had the money for the ticket. It was like, hey, it's coming along, and I have my portfolio. Could hear that I'm not just some, full of crap. Like it's legit. You know, like everything that I'm doing. And then he said, like, oh, you're going. Give me 2 days. We're going to figure it out. I was like, okay. And so I said, fine. So in 2 days, he called me and said, like, hey, I found someone to pay half of your ticket, to go. I was like, okay. And he said, but there's a thing. I was like, what is the thing? So this dude, he was a strength and conditioning coach and stuff. And he already had his visa denied twice, and he was from a city that a lot of people are denied. And they're known for come here and stay.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. So he said, like, if he goes with you as your trainer, you know what I mean? When you get there, he'll pay half of the ticket. And I said, like, okay, like, that's okay. Like, he was vouching for it. So we went to the embassy. I went with him and another guy that was just friends with a politician to be like, hey, make sure you go to that specific window to talk about with that person. Yeah. Like, okay. So I get there, I already tell him, like, hey, this is just a letter that I needed. It's just that's it to approve, da-da-da-da-da. And then say, like, what about you? So I start asking him. So he started getting nervous. So I started kind of stutter and then, like, not sure kind of like what to answer. And then being denied before doesn't help.
Yeah.
So the guy just go, okay, yours is approved and yours is, denied. And then I right away was like, I better get out of here before he changes his mind. I just grabbed my thing. Just as I start walking in, I can hear the guy trying to talk, and he goes like this, straight up, next.
Oh, wow.
Twice. And then he tried to say something next. And then the third one was followed by security.
Oh, no.
Just like that. They say no in your face, and they do not give yes. It's just like, next.
That's it.
Hey, but next.
Oh, did you get the money though?
So like me?
Yeah.
Well, yeah. So,
okay.
So there's, not to that point.
Gotcha.
But like, so when we leave, I'm ready to go home. I'm
yeah.
Like, dude, I'm happy. I'm happy. Like I got the visa. And then they called, and the dude's politician, his brother owned like some local newspaper. And kind of like a little ghetto one, but that was known in Rio. So it said, like, well, come here to the newspaper, like to the HQ, because there's something wrong. They shouldn't be denied. And I'm like, okay, but it was close to my house, so I went to, and no one told me that. I saw that. The dude called the owner. I was sitting in the office. The dude called the embassy. They're waiting, they're calling, and then he go like, we have an athlete that is going to compete. They even put a little article on me or whatever, just like show like, yeah, they're kind of supporting.
Yeah.
That is going to represent Brazil, in a tournament, and then his coach was denied, and there's no reason to be denied. And I tell you what, if you guys don't approve his visa by tonight, we come with a full press in the morning accusing of racism because he was dark skinned.
Oh, wow.
Guess what? They gave him
the visa?
Yeah.
Did you ever see the guy again?
Well, we traveled together. Yeah, we went together.
Wow.
So we landed in LA. He was going to go to New York.
Okay.
Probably still there. But but like he came in, and then he went through the immigration, and he could have totally just like, peace, what are we going to do? Jump the dude at the airport? Yeah. And if you want to just walk away?
Yeah.
So no, he was, like honor his word and counted some cash, shake hands, and then that was it. And there was money that I was able to eat and survive here. And then I was counting everything, so I was even able to kind of bring some change back.
So you're always about the hustle.
Yeah. So by the way, to get to the tournament, see what I'm saying? Is not the tournament
it's always
itself.
Something.
So
yeah,
it's very different. Again, you just sign up, you go, nice, I'm going to the Worlds in June or whatever. I sign up and I go to Long Beach.
Yeah.
That's good, but not everyone have the luxury. So for everyone, man, that when you go to a tournament, this is for you, for anyone who's competing, that's one of the things that when I'm not active competitor anymore, but when I was going through my transformation, one of the key words and I was kind of telling myself in the bullpen is the word gratitude. Because if you listen right now and you've been training for over a decade now, how many people you've seen that, of course, started jiu-jitsu journey and got hit with life?
Oh, hundreds. I mean,
Stop.
Yeah.
And then in the back of their mind, they're saying, I wish I could train jiu-jitsu again.
Yes.
And they might be going on YouTube, Flow, and is still a fan, but the life just went to a different position. Or someone that they used to compete, not even training, they got into competing and traveling and they loved that time. And then you start thinking like, man, I'm in a warm-up area here and I'm anxious. You should be excited.
Yeah.
The people, I don't care what tournament that is. If it's just a local little tournament here or the Worlds, there's people who would dream to be competing. I'm not even saying a high-level tournament.
Yeah.
So just appreciate the fact that are like, dude, you get to compete. Some people can't because they can't afford. They don't have a visa. They're injured. They're sick with something bad. You know what I mean? There's so many things involved and you're there. So when it's like a light switch. You start feeling that anxiety, just flip to excitement. Like, dude, look where you at.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You're getting to compete. So, and again, if you want to go far as like Master Worlds and then see like, dude, there's people a lot of people wanted to travel to be here and they don't have a visa they couldn't afford.
Yeah.
And you get to be here. So I try to share this more with people. So try to get a little lighter. Just, dude, look, you know, at one point, there will be no Master 9 division, Master 10, you know what I mean? Like, it's like, that's it, dude.
That's it.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So if that's what you want, you know what I mean? Compete, go ahead. If it's different, like, nah, I don't feel like that's different.
Yeah.
But if you feel like you wanted to and just be grateful for the opportunity to just to be there, dude.
Yeah.
You know, just to be competing. I think it's it changed perspective.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It really does.
Yeah, there's nothing harder to watch. Well, I mean, there's obviously harder things to watch, but it's really hard to watch people who don't enjoy the moment. They just can't soak it in. Like even, you know, they're very results driven mostly, right?
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, win or lose, they can't seem to enjoy that moment. And that's a shame. Like you said, the gratitude piece is missing.
Having, again, the hard time with the now.
Yeah.
Which is, man, again, easier said than done. You know, the book, The Power of Now, talks a lot about this when at some point we all do to a certain degree, some more than others. We all have sometimes the battles that we're anxious for the future or depressed with something that happened, a decision we made, a choice we made or whatever.
Yeah.
Or, you know, anxious for what can happen, what it's about to happen with everything, not jiu-jitsu. I'm saying life in general.
Yeah.
So finding that little pocket of now is not easy, especially we're surrounded by negativity or surrounded by just busy. We turn our phones and then we live. I think the world is going through like an interesting time.
Yeah.
It's not just U.S. So the world is like, man, it's a different moment. You know? It's kind of like, it's kind of weird. Brazil's going through a lot of like stuff, you know, and it's just a different time out there.
Yeah. I think we're starting to see the results of what social media can really do to a person because for a long time we didn't have a big enough sample size to see what it's doing. Yeah. But I think it's starting to manifest in oh no. Okay. I think we're okay. Hang on one second. Let me Come on. All right, there we go. All right. Well, this is never happening. All right. Well, we've been going for 3 hours and 13 minutes, Professor. So, but listen, this was fantastic. I apologize. I have to, for some reason, my recording stopped. We still have audio, so we'll just go to a banner at the end. But let everybody know where they can find you, social media wise, and Jiu-Jitsu Tribe, and your websites and all that.
Yeah, jiu-jitsutribe.org. And basically, if you go to Instagram, Gustavo Dantas, BJJ, there's a bunch of like the links right there.
Yeah.
So we can find some stuff there. And that's it. Well, yeah, man, appreciate the opportunity. And we can definitely kind of go on and on.
Yeah.
And then still there's so many things that could be talked about, especially with the scene in AZ.
Yeah.
With the tournaments and people that maybe just kind of joined the community not too long ago, don't realize how far we came with this.
Oh, absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
From 4 years of in-house tournaments from beginning of 2001 to 2005.
Yeah.
Just in-house tournaments that wouldn't even break 100 people, to then get to a moment to like, okay, we have more than 100 people.
Yeah.
Let's go out and keep accepting that challenge of like, the first challenge was, I came here, and then the tournaments were, the only tournament I was here was not good at all.
Yeah.
And there's a quote that I like, that let your irritations inspire you. So that's exactly what happened. I went there, like I went once, I went twice, I saw the pattern. I'm like, okay, this is a joke.
Yeah.
And I need to do something about it. And then accept the challenge of promote a better product, because I knew that I could do it.
Yeah.
And then I was like, oh, okay. So now people start to see like, even being humble at the beginning.
Yeah.
But there was like, oh, we have a little schedule. We have a little time. You know what I mean? It was super slow.
Yeah.
But then get to a point that we have right now, over basically average of like 5,000 people competing a year.
Wow. That's awesome.
It doesn't mean 5,000 different people or whatever,
Yeah.
but we're putting all the terms together. It's about that. Without counting other organizations in Arizona now. Like last year from September to November was like tournaments every weekend, for 11 tournaments in like 2.5 months or something.
It was insane.
Like yeah, crazy like that. So it's growing, and we're just trying to keep doing the best we can to offer the best product possible. Is it perfect? It's never going to be, but we always try to strive to offer a better service. Yeah.
No, and you're doing a great job of that. And what I'd like to do is maybe after a tournament, get you and Heath on the show and talk a little bit about the organization and do a deep dive in that, because I think that's something that's missing, right? So we need to talk about that a little bit.
Especially, again, for some people that don't know, they just see right now like, oh, it's a tournament, cool.
Yeah.
But they don't know, like, how many years took to get to the point of like, oh wow, and the impact that the tournaments brought to a lot of people's, not just the careers of people that want to compete and go to IBJJF rules and regulations and become more familiar with the process.
Yeah.
So that really helps, and I believe everyone agrees that jiu-jitsu is an incredible tool. It's a personal development tool, and competition is just an opportunity to amplify the power of this tool.
Yeah, for sure.
Because you don't need to compete to get the benefits of jiu-jitsu at all.
Yeah.
But the mental, the emotional aspect of getting involved with that process, getting ready, dealing, so that amplifies the power of the tool. Because if you think about it, or anyone listening, can you even compare how to be your journey, like a decade of training jiu-jitsu, no competition, just training, absolutely make a huge impact in your life.
Yep.
There's no doubt. Now, without competition and your competition experience, that's amplified.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Well, and also like I get excited for competitions because I get to see all my friends, that I don't get to see all the time because we're in different academies and different schools and all that. So yeah, it's always a great thing. But yeah, if you wouldn't mind doing another show, I would love to have you on.
For sure.
Okay. All right, everybody. If you love the podcast, please like and subscribe. Follow us on Instagram and YouTube and Facebook and everywhere else you can find a podcast, The BJJ Foxcast. Again, Professor Gustavo Dantas, thank you so much for doing this.
You're welcome. Hope you guys enjoy.
Yes. This episode of the BJJ Foxcast is brought to you by BioPro. BioPro is an all-natural alternative to prescription human growth hormone, which aids in recovery, anti-aging, metabolism, libido, immunity, skin health, cognition, sleep, and stress. Just 1 vial per day provides a substantial boost to all of these growth factors. Okay, so that's what they want me to say. Here's what I know as an aging grappler. I've been using BioPro Plus and the nighttime variant, BioPro Plus Cortisleep, for several months, and it feels like I've grown a third lung. My gas tank is noticeably bigger, my recovery is faster, and I'm back on the mats much quicker, not just between training sessions, but between rounds. Now you can get $30 off your first order of BioPro when you use the code Foxcast at www.bioproteintech.com. That's code Foxcast for $30 off your first order at www.bioproteintech.com. Thank you, BioPro.